the Liberal Party is committed to legalizing and regulating marijuana, then we're going to get started on that right away.
The legalization of marijuana is coming to Canada.
Hey, what do you want?
Bring me some reefers.
I wanna get
But Canadians are still deeply polarized on the issue. Our experiment plays political Cupid by taking two opposing politicians out of their comfort zone and forces them to listen to one another.
Have you smoked marijuana?
No, I haven't. And have you?
Yes.
We're sending them on a series of platonic dates to solve the thorniest issues facing Canadians.
I used cannabis during the pregnancy of my triplets.
I find what you just described horrifying.
You want to take a whiff?
I don't know why it's important to project a moral view of this on me.
Because the criminal code is a moral document.
Who will seduce the other with logic or passion? And what surprises are in store? This is Political Blind Date.
So I studied politics and law for 8 years of my life, including constitutional law and political philosophy. My wife is one of the reasons I was drawn to public service and politics. She's a professor at George Brown in nutrition and also a chef. She lost her mother to cancer, and so she's been very focused on preventative healthcare through proper nutrition and teaching people culinary skills to change their lives. To see her contribute her time to making a difference really encouraged me to pursue politics as a way of making a difference. It's amazing being a new dad and having no idea what I'm doing half the time, but it's incredible.
Hi, buddy.
Say I'm mad at you.
Yeah.
I was quite frustrated at the current state of politics, the apathy, the lack of trust in our democracy, and I thought if I could help improve people's perception of politics, that would be a great way of making a difference.
We can and should treat drug use and abuse as a health issue and not as a crime.
I will continue to argue for our platform promise, which is to have a more sensible and compassionate drug policy.
I'm not suggesting that I have all the answers, but I am asking our government and this House to consider additional public health and harm reduction measures. I'm asking us to work together to save lives.
Well, I'm 30 years old. People ask me, how long have you been involved in politics? And I usually say 30 years.
I want to start this speech by talking about the experience of my maternal grandmother.
My grandmother was a Holocaust survivor. She was living in Germany during the Second World War and obviously very impacted by what was happening. My grandparents' lives were profoundly shaped by politics. My wife is a physician. She is someone who really understands and appreciates the importance of politics and the importance of the issues. My daughter is 4. My son is 18 months. My daughter, she got to see a lot of me before I was elected. It was a challenging transition in terms of getting her to understand that I was going to be away a fair bit and understand why that was important.
I'm going to suggest that you play the blue ones.
I suggest you should play the same number.
But it's unlikely that I would do that because that's not in my strategic interest.
Oh.
As someone who does not support legalization, I'm concerned about the impact in terms of family, in terms of health, in terms of safety. This is the bigger question about drugs. What are the areas of need in people's lives that maybe in some cases lead them to go in that direction?
Throughout the world, the legalization of cannabis is gaining steam. A number of U.S. states have fully legalized the medicinal and recreational use of the drug. When Canada passes promised legislation on the matter, it will be one of the first industrialized countries to fully legalize the use of cannabis. Cannabis is a flowering plant which has long been used for medicinal purposes and as a recreational drug. The dried, crushed flowers and leaves are called marijuana. Tetrahydrocannabinol, or THC, is the principal psychoactive element that causes the high of cannabis. Cannabidiol, or CBD, is another chemical compound in cannabis that has shown promise in treating medical conditions like epilepsy, as well as chronic pain. Nate and Garnett are spending the day together, rare for rival politicians. Will they butt heads? Or might they find common ground?
I don't know whether Garnett's view is a more progressive one or not. I expect we have slightly different views on the topic.
Nathaniel is someone who I don't know particularly well, but I've enjoyed crossing swords with him in the House of Commons from time to time.
You think he'd be willing to try some today?
I think that would be an uphill battle. I would put almost all of the money I own on him not doing so, but you never know.
Hey, Nate, how are you?
How's it going? Good to see you.
Good to see you, too. Looking forward to this?
Yeah, for sure. And does your wife work? Or
Yes, my wife's a physician, and
okay.
she works two mornings a week. So what does your wife do?
She's a chef and nutrition prof at George Brown College here in Toronto.
Cool. Well, next time we get together, we should definitely bring our wives with us, because my wife loves watching cooking shows and is super into
healthy eating.
Yeah, and that's a big part of her medical
Yeah, of
practice.
course.
So maybe they would agree on more things than you and I.
I would expect so, actually.
Yeah. Well, let's bridge over to the drug policy topic.
Sure. Have you smoked marijuana?
No, I haven't. And have you?
Yes.
Okay.
So I mean, that's.
And you think there are positive effects? You think
I'm not the only
your
one.
life is better because you smoke marijuana?
So I have Crohn's disease. Okay. Let's give you an example.
Right.
I would have stomach pain sometimes, and I would have nausea. Marijuana helped. No, there's zero question.
I don't oppose, in the context of a proper process, medicinal use of marijuana, but it's not something that people should be taking recreationally. I guess my belief about drugs in general
Do you drink?
is, yeah, alcohol, yeah.
Interesting. So it may be personal experience then. You don't think your conduct is immoral, but mine is.
I don't drink and drive. I don't drink heavily. There are different kinds of substances, right?
If a Canadian comes home on a Friday night and has a couple of scotches to relax after a long week, that intoxicating effect of alcohol will help them relax. And it's no different with marijuana.
If someone comes home on a Friday night and is getting to the point of blackout drunk, like no one's going to defend that as being a good or healthy choice.
You go from
right?
extremes, like one drink to blackout drunk. If someone has two or three drinks, there's an intoxicating effect, but they're not blackout drunk. They just feel they
kind of a lightweight, aren't you?
Well, 5, 6, I don't know. How many do you drink? I mean, because if you're up to 5, 6 a night, then you might want to be worried about the health consequences.
I'm certainly not. No, absolutely.
But honestly, I mean, it's a bit of reefer madness to say someone is not high or they're high and they're completely out of control in some way.
I mean, the purpose of smoking marijuana in any event is to get high, right? It's
right. And why do you drink? Because you want
I
to feel.
really like the taste of scotch.
And you don't like being intoxicated a little bit.
No, I don't. I don't. There's a certain sort of physical effect where, you're
intoxication.
No, you're not really talking about intoxication. You're talking about, okay, I probably shouldn't drive, but
because you're intoxicated.
Most people who have 2 scotches are not going to go out and commit a crime that they wouldn't have.
If I have
otherwise.
2 tokes from a joint, I'm not committing a crime.
Right, because we're talking about different effects. I just think that marijuana is extremely dangerous.
I mean, we are giving one another our own perspectives and not convincing one another necessarily.
Not yet.
Not yet. Let's go meet some other people who might change our perspectives.
Garnett has arranged to take Nate into what the conservative believes is the illegal underbelly of the cannabis world.
The evidence suggests a significant increase in risk associated with marijuana use of psychosis, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and depression, as well as other pre-existing psychotic disorders being exacerbated.
Right, so I don't think there's any intrinsic harm to smoking marijuana. There are risks. There's a risk of harm for certain vulnerable populations, pregnant women, for example. This study that I'm mentioning refers to lower birth weights as a substantial connection. Sure, pregnant women should not be smoking marijuana. They should not be drinking. And then the question is, what are those real risks? And balanced against, should we be criminalizing it?
Anyways, but here we are.
Garnett surprises Nate by taking him to one of Toronto's longest-standing dispensaries. the queens of cannabis.
We appreciate the chance to come here and hear a bit about what you do.
People who are coming in off the street inquiring if they can become members here, they're usually looking for recreation, but what they don't realize by the end of our conversation is, why are you using cannabis? Why do you want to use cannabis? Well, stress, insomnia, anxiety. They're self-medicating. They haven't needed to see the doctor as well.
That people are seeking marijuana effectively in response to medical challenges, but they're seeking it recreationally.
We wanted to invite you both for tea in the back with Virginia Vidal from Mary's Wellness. She's a local edible maker.
I have triplets, and they were THC infused.
THC infused?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Basically, I used cannabis during the pregnancy of my triplets. And my triplets were born full term, healthy, no hospital stay. They had no NICU stay. They were breastfed for 4 months, which they intook more cannabis through breast milk. Next week, they turned 10. They're smart, they're healthy, empathetic, happy children. With the triplets, I had terrible morning sickness. I was very ill.
Were you smoking?
I was very sick, constantly sick, to the point where I broke down, and I actually did smoke. And when I did smoke, I was incredibly hungry. It was amazing. And I was able to actually maintain and keep the food down, which was very new for me. And to me, that was more important and more beneficial than having to take diclofenac, which was something else that I was prescribed for the pregnancy with the triplets, where I felt cannabis was natural, had less side effects.
Was this decision sort of made in conjunction with a physician, or was this a decision you kind of took on your own?
My physician was not aware of my, that was a position I took myself.
Do you have formal medical training of any sort?
I do not have many medical training.
You have no medical training.
That's right.
During pregnancy, without consulting your physician, you regularly used marijuana.
I did have actually an argument with one of the doctors at the hospital because I did disclose to him in taking cannabis, and he wasn't pleased about it. But then I wasn't as pleased about him had just injected me with steroids either, you know? And other medications and morphine right into my legs. I mean, how pleasant was that for my triplets? That wasn't the greatest side effects. I mean, I saw women in the hospital going through morphine withdrawal, and so was their babies. That wasn't exactly pleasant. My triplets did not have to go through THC withdrawal because they didn't need to.
I find what you just described somewhat horrifying.
You're ignoring the fact that my triplets were actually born full term and healthy.
Can I just want to make
So do you
my
think
one point.
diclofenac and morphine was better for me during pregnancy?
That's why the World Health Organization is actually looking at legalization.
I just want to make the one point. It just isn't good enough to say, I used it and things turned out well for me.
I'm not the only one. Many women who've come, since I've come out, have come to me and have written to me and told me the same thing and how beneficial it was to them. And they were just afraid to tell their medical community because of the prosecution or the judgment that they might get, just like I just got.
I'm very sorry if you feel judged. I want to have an honest conversation
was a little bit
about the
judgmental.
issue, right?
Everybody has triplets. I mean, it's not everyone that has triplets.
Why I value an above-board and regulated framework so much is that you would be free to make that choice, but I do believe you ought to have all the evidence in front of you, and there's a much greater likelihood of that happening, in my opinion, in an above-board regulated framework. It wasn't a great argument for legalizing and regulating marijuana to hear from her, unfortunately.
It seemed as if they had the perception that every problem in life can be solved by marijuana. This is clearly not the case.
That was your date. Jesus Christ. Although I wouldn't have taken you there.
So, debrief a little bit?
Sure, you start. Jesus.
There's this phenomenon of sort of self-medicating for perceived health benefits without any kind of help from the medical system. How do you feel about that?
There are health claims being made, whether it's about peppermint tea, marijuana, about ginseng. I mean, I think all of these should be subject to real, credible scientific justification.
Garnett's date isn't over yet. He wants Nate to meet someone whose life has been adversely affected by marijuana use.
Hi,
Nice
Chris.
to meet you.
Thanks so much for meeting with us. So why don't you just kind of share a bit of your story with us?
I feel very lucky to be alive. And it's been a long battle.
Well, when did you start, first of all? When did you smoke your first joint?
I was probably in my late teens when I would have smoked marijuana the first time. I wanted to be cool. I wanted to fit in. My dad was the school principal. I wanted not to be square, and I'd always been a bit sad because of stuff that happened when I was younger. So it seemed to lighten the mood,
Which I think is a common occurrence from my reading of dependence, is that it's not necessarily born out of the drug itself oftentimes, but it's born out of your circumstances.
What my addiction really is a symptom of a mental health condition, right? There's something that doesn't connect between my prefrontal cortex and my animal brain, and I get stuck making kind of animal choices, right, which are pretty basic and fear-based. The mental health aspect doesn't go away simply because I put down the substance.
I think a lot of people would be skeptical of the idea of marijuana addiction itself. Not everybody who uses gets addicted, and probably most of the people who use don't get addicted.
It's like 2% or something.
Was the possibility of addiction on your radar?
No,
Okay.
it didn't. Never crossed my. I just didn't think about it. I didn't realize that addiction doesn't discriminate, and that maybe it's 2% that get addicted.
Exactly.
I'll start thinking I'm special.
And when it comes to the sort of the law enforcement side of it, part of my argument that I've made throughout the day was someone in your situation could really benefit actually from a legal intervention.
Throwing me in jail might have worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to tell you how many times I drove.
Right. And that conduct obviously should be prohibited.
Yeah, and yet we're going to see, an increase in that. We see people repeating with drinking and driving. We don't see a real decrease in rates. We wonder what is up with that. It's going to be the same thing.
I think it's really important that we hear what you have to say about the impacts of it.
It takes courage to sit down with us and do this.
Well, I thank you both for your interest in the subject, because we're going to make some progress with this.
Yeah.
There needs to be greater funding for mental health initiatives, and whether it's eating disorders, whether it's drug abuse, we have to help people with what they're trying to cope with in the first place.
So it's a lot for policymakers to think about here in terms of both understanding what leads people down this path and also trying to get the information out there that, yes, this isn't just fun and games. There are significant risks associated with going down this path.
Now it's Nate's turn. He wants to show Garnett what the future of the cannabis industry might look like.
Psychoactive substance use exists on a spectrum between problematic use and beneficial use. So problematic use encompasses everything you're concerned about. Dependence, abuse, misuse. On the beneficial end of the spectrum, you have medical use. You have use where the benefits outweigh the negatives.
We want to educate kids in particular, but all Canadians, about not letting marijuana use, or any drug use for that matter, negatively affect their lives. You have functioning members of Canadian society who use this substance recreationally.
Yeah.
You don't have to condone it. You don't have to think it is you can think their behavior is immoral.
I've never talked about morality at any point today.
Moralism underpins the entire conversation.
I don't know why it's important to your argument to project a moral view of this on me. I
because
think
the criminal code is a moral document, and by making it a criminal offense, you are saying it is immoral behavior.
I do think that it's harmful, and that the criminal code.
That's not an answer, Garnett.
I don't think that incarceration is the best response. I favor a ticketing option as part of a broader response.
What would you ticket for?
I think there should be a ticketing option for possession.
I've smoked pot in my life. I spent 7 years at Queen's studying politics and law. I finished my degree at Oxford in the BCL program, and I finished with distinction.
You're a smart guy. I agree.
So the cop is going to pull me over. Do you think they're going to give me a ticket, or do you think they're going to give me a criminal record? Whereas they pull up a young black youth in downtown Toronto, do you think they're going to get a ticket, or do you think they're going to get a criminal charge?
That discretion exists whether or not you have a ticketing option.
That enforcement disparity exists because of prohibition.
Exactly.
I think marijuana is dangerous. You can agree or disagree with that. The fact that there are real problems of racism out there needs to be acknowledged. But to suggest that those problems would go away or somehow be mitigated by changing the laws on marijuana, I think is pretty unrealistic.
When you say a ticketing option, I think you get away with moving the conversation to say, oh, we don't want the criminal penalty. But then in the background, you're saying, but the criminal penalty should still be there. He kept coming back to say a ticketing option without, I think, fully justifying why there should ever be a criminal prohibition, criminal penalty as an option at all.
Nate takes Garnett to the facility where Tweed grows and processes its cannabis.
So as you know, this is the old Hershey chocolate factory.
All right, I noticed driving in that the road's still called Hershey, though. You know, are you lobbying to change the road name?
I don't know that we're lobbying. I think that inevitably the economic importance of us being in Smiths Falls will speak for itself, and they will rename.
You could be like #1 really dangerous stuff road or something, right?
I don't know if that's what we'll go with.
No,
I think
okay.
I think it would be like one happy plant drive.
Okay, yes,
or something
that's it.
like that. So first of all, we got to gown up. So I'm going to give you guys each a lab coat. Yeah. Here you go, sir.
Is this like a typical marijuana smell or no?
No, this is like fresh marijuana.
This is fresh. It's different.
Yeah. It's different than like someone smoking a joint around the corner kind of thing. I'll just have you guys throw these booties on.
Are we gonna like seriously smell like this stuff when we go into the house this afternoon?
Not serious. I'm just gonna have to ask you guys to wash your hands at the sink. I'm gonna assume on Nate's part that he's maybe seen a plant in his life.
I've seen a plant.
Looking at these plants, I've probably seen them before.
A friend's backyard, perhaps.
Right, yeah. And I probably just naively thought it was
a tomato plant.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
So cannabis is one of these unique plants where it grows in male and female forms. So we want to just keep the female plants because the female plants produce the product that people are looking for. So these are what we call mother plants.
So the male plant is totally useless? Or?
The male plant is good for breeding. If you, you know, when we want to develop new varieties, that's generally where the male plant's going to come in handy.
But they still reproduce sort of in a typical way a plant does with a cutting or whatever else.
Yes. So in order to guarantee genetic uniformity.
Not that I'm going to grow them, to be clear. I'm just curious.
Maybe 4.
I mean, you sound extremely curious about the process. So don't let me leave out any detail.
Yeah.
This is cannabis being processed. We got a manicuring crew just pruning off some of the leaves. You can jump into this.
They didn't make me wear one of these when I delivered a baby.
When you what?
I delivered a baby. Did I never tell you that story?
No.
No, so our second came too fast at home.
No, get out of here.
Yeah, it was just me and my wife. Our older daughter was in her crib.
And sheer panic.
Yeah. my wife's a physician, so she walked me through it, but I have no medical training.
So, MP by day, doctor by night, baby doctor by night?
Yeah, we're going to add that to our list of constituency services here, right?
Yeah, that's right. So how many plants are currently grown here?
We can store up to about $150 million worth of cannabis in our vault.
What kind of security do you have in this facility? You got a lot of...
Well, you may have noticed the biometric fingerprint readers to get into the production space. The vault is bomb-proof. I mean, you just can't get in there. It's Fort Knox in the vault. All right, come on in, fellas.
You're gonna love the smell. A little more potent in here.
So these are cannabis plants in full flowering. You can see on the leaves how they're covered in little crystals. So those trichomes are where the cannabinoids are produced. So the THC, the CBD, even the aromatic compounds, they're produced by and large in those crystals. We just need gloves to touch.
I don't really need to touch the plants, so I'm like...
Oh, come on.
I don't think I'll get anything out of touching them that I won't get from looking.
You want to take a whiff?
Yeah, pretty strong smell.
Pretty strong, right? These are a few high THC varieties, but what I'm really interested in showing you is one of our varieties that contains practically no THC.
Okay.
There's a lot of concern about THC, and the concern about THC on mental health, for example, as you mentioned. Over the years, under Prohibition, people have only bred for these super high potency varieties that contain insane amounts of THC. So the CBD, which actually arguably makes marijuana safer because CBD has antipsychotic properties, CBD can actually tone down the psychoactive effect of the THC. It's been bred out for all these years. So legalization, regulation of the medical system has actually reintroduced these
safer varieties of cannabis. And so, you know, a plant like this was unheard of many
We
years
can
ago.
continue this conversation outside
Yes.
the room because this is, I only want to smell it for so long, but it's interesting to see for sure.
Are you worried about smelling like cannabis going back to the house today?
Yeah.
So long as it smells
I
from
think
both sides of the house.
I was going to say Nate's colleagues are going to shrug it off, but my colleagues a little more surprised.
That's to be expected.
Can I actually get a selfie with you guys in here?
Strictly for personal use, right?
For personal use.
Yeah, okay.
Great. All right. Let's get out of here.
I imagine when you were first elected, you never expected to take a selfie with a liberal in front of hundreds of marijuana plants.
You know?
There has to be real information out there about the risks, and I do worry that a place like Tweed, the aura of professionalism, does actually a much better job of covering up the reality of that risk.
But part of your position depends upon this idea that there can be no responsible use, right? That there's never an instance where it's not harmful.
I do not think that the use of marijuana is responsible.
Is ever innocuous. Is ever not seriously harmful.
Yeah. I don't see any upside
That's
to
the root. That's the root of the disagreement that we are not going to ever solve, I think.
I believe that he trades on science that isn't there with respect to the harms associated with marijuana. But near the end, we were trying to find commonalities of if and when marijuana is legal and regulated, what should that framework look like?
You identified, you know, the need for better education around the issue. You know,
And
maybe
even here, I mean, restricting access to youth. I mean, we would agree in many ways.
And I think we would probably agree as well the need to really take seriously the issue of addictions treatment.
You think the government will be open to feedback, to implementing amendments that might come forward from the opposition?
I expect there will be an openness to reasonable amendments.
Provided. Reasonable amendments, okay. Well,
I would hope.
I
would hope that
that gives you a little bit of wiggle room there, doesn't it?
I hope we're not open to unreasonable amendments.
Fair enough.
So I think Nate and I are positioned coming out of this, yes, to work together.
I certainly feel like I've got more of a friend on the other side of the house than I had at the outset.
Now I know him well enough to know that yes, he is serious, thoughtful in his approach to issues, and well-intentioned.
And you still have to let me know what else you would criminalize.
Well, I think we've had a good discussion on this one, so good to talk to you. Take care.
Didn't get all the answers I wanted. You know, I don't know what else he'd criminalize, but it was constructive.
We still don't agree on the fundamental question of whether or not the government of Canada should legalize marijuana. The nice thing is, when you have a knowledge of each other that's kind of based on mutual respect, even if you disagree on 90% of the issues, you can still work together on the 10%.
Canada's largest cities are growing so fast that existing transportation networks can't keep up with demand. In Toronto, years of political inaction at all levels of government has left the city's infrastructure decades out of date. Who has the vision to get people moving again? Our experiment plays political Cupid by taking two opposing politicians out of their comfort zone and forces them to listen to one another.
To make sure that we can keep those services.
I'll disagree on that. It's garbage.
It's not like Doug hides his opinion. He's very bold with his opinions.
I always say the first through the door gets bloodied a bit.
We're sending them on a series of platonic dates to solve the thorniest issues facing Canadians.
I haven't been on a bike in 35 years. You're nervous when there's not bike lanes.
To be someone that I would have nothing in common with.
Well, you're pushing it, buddy.
And it's going to be a clash.
Just turns into a nightmare. People on one side of the political spectrum, you know, just sit there with their blinders on and don't want to listen to the other side.
Who will seduce the other with logic or passion? And what surprises are in store? This is Political Blind Date.
Rob called me in Chicago one time and said he was running for mayor, that he needed my help, and, you know, can you come back and help me? There's no card-carrying Ford Nation card. It just amazes me. I've always wanted to study it because we'd hold a Ford Fest out in Scarborough, and 10,000 people would show up. It floored me, but that was all Rob's hard work. A lot of times we'd go to events at night, and he was fine, but I didn't spend every single night with Rob. He'd go home, belted a few back, and did some pretty wild stuff at a point there. But there's one thing, and I'd always stick up for Rob. People will accept an addiction and as long as you go get help. That's why I stood by him. I was proud of him for going to get the support and move on with your life, because life changes rapidly. So that was a real punch in the face. You know, just seeing him in the hospital the last few days, and then the day he passed away was, probably the toughest time of my life. Just think of him, because he was so young and he had so much more to give.
We are building transit in this city for 25 or 30 years. We're building it for 50 to 100 years.
Still up to today, I get 10 calls a day from constituents on federal issues, provincial, municipal issues, and it's 2018. I'll be either at the city running for mayor or running provincially. I feel we need to serve the people and continue to serve the people.
If we look at the past 9 years, the track record of this government hasn't been very reassuring when it comes to investments into transit. I think there could be a lot more done in this file, and there needs to be a lot more done. I'm with the New Democratic Party, and I'm the deputy leader. In addition, I'm also the critic for the Attorney General, as well as Government Services and Consumer Affairs. Oh, and also recently appointed the critic for the Anti-Racism Directorate. I'm a Sikh, and I'm a visible Sikh in terms of my identity. And that's played a large role in defining my politics and my beliefs for a number of reasons. First off, growing up as a brown-skinned kid with a funny-sounding first name like Jagmeet, and having long hair when most boys don't have long hair, resulted in a lot of teasing and a lot of name-calling and a lot of racism. They triggered in me this response that we have to do something about it. So it informed my passion for social justice. In addition, my Sikh spirituality informs me through the belief that we're all one, we're all connected, and the environment and the planet is also connected. So I represent a community that's pretty diverse, and one of the most diverse ridings, I would say, in the country. So my office, I consider it like a community hub, and it's a place where people can come together and use a space for activities, for programming. We do lots of roundtables here as well, so people come together, discuss issues, I hear their concerns. It's just, I love the fact that we can all kind of sit around a big table together. So today, I have the distinct pleasure of going on a date with Doug Ford. So we're gonna see how that turns out. I'm sure it'll be great. So I get to do a lot of cool stuff as an MVP, but today has got to be up there in some cool level stuff. I'm doing a blind date show, but this isn't just any blind date. This is a political blind date, and I'm going to be spending my day with Doug Ford. There isn't one way to reach out to a broad audience, and now it takes a lot of different mediums to get to your entire audience. And social media is one of those very powerful ways to reach out to a lot of people.
A lot of my business associates think I'm crazy to do it, but I enjoy it, just giving back, and it gives you a great feeling when you go to the gas station and people come up to you and say, don't let us down, keep going, keep fighting for us, fight for the little guy.
Toronto is one of the fastest growing cities in the industrialized world. As people pour in from around the country and from around the planet, understanding how to move its millions of residents has never been more important or more contentious. Most critics of all political stripes agree that the issue has been ignored for decades. The Toronto Transit Commission, or TTC, transports more than 2.5 million people a day. It runs a network of subways, streetcars, buses, and light rail. Existing subway lines are bursting at the seams, and solutions are needed. LRTs, or light rapid transit trains, are being built, while some critics think resources should only be allocated to subways, such as a controversial single stop into Scarborough, which will cost more than $3.5 billion. Some politicians see the 1.5 million cars and their drivers being ignored. And what about the 20,000 bicyclists that come into the downtown every day? Doug and Jagmeet are spending the day together, rare for rival politicians. Will they butt heads, or might they find common ground?
I'm meeting Jagmeet, NDP MPP from Brampton. I hear he's a good guy. I think I've said hello to him a couple times, but I really know nothing about him, nothing at all. So let's see what happens, and we'll have a chat with him.
He, in terms of political thought and ideology, would be pretty far from where I'm coming from. So I know that there's gonna be a bit of a chasm in between our thoughts.
There's a right way of doing things and a wrong way of doing things. The wrong way are those streetcars that are antiquated, should be back in the 1900s, versus rapid underground transit, better known as subways.
The future is going to be how we can move around without using a car. How can we get around with public transit and with bicycles? Bicycles are really the future, I think.
Coordination, greatest mayor ever.
Well, I always have a little hangout at Perkins. I think I've met every politician in the country, from premiers to finance ministers to mayors to you name it, former premiers. The only person that hasn't been in there is the prime minister.
Jagmeet speaking.
Jagmeet, Doug Ford, brother, how you doing?
I'm good, man. Looking forward to meeting up today.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here waiting. Your bacon and eggs are getting cold, brother.
Uh-oh. I'm on my way.
Okay, I thought for a second you got stuck on a streetcar. But we'll talk when you get here.
I would love to be on a streetcar. Those are so comfy, but no, I'm not. I don't have the pleasure of one right now.
Okay, buddy. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
See you soon. Bye-bye. There was this notion that don't even be seen beside them. Don't even be seen hanging out with them. Or people are like, well, why are you meeting with them? What are you doing? There's nothing you have in common. There's no reason you should be speaking with him. And even being seen with him is going to be hurtful to you.
We are at a diner, I guess. Perkins. No, we can't be going here, are we? All right. Restaurant and bakery. All right, Perkins. Probably not my first choice in terms of restaurants.
I met Jagmeet once before, really quickly. And, sometimes it gets a sense of entitlement. You gotta ground them, and that's what I enjoy doing.
I didn't think we would be able to sit down and have a different opinion and have a productive conversation out of it. So that was kind of my stereotype going into it.
Buddy,
Doug,
you
how's
made
it
it.
going? This is probably the first time I've ever been in a Perkins in my life.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you, man.
Everything going
Yeah,
right?
really good, man. Good to see you.
Excellent. I'm not too sure if you're a coffee drinker, green tea drinker. Or...
Water for sure. I might do green tea.
Yeah, green tea's good. I have one brother that thinks we're crazy to be in politics, and I agree with him. Rob, he loved the politics. He wanted me to run for leader and run for this and run for that. And
you must miss him a lot still, huh?
Oh, tremendously.
Yeah.
Tremendously.
So my brother and I are the same way. He's actually the person that I attribute, if I've achieved any political success, it's because of him.
Yeah. He's not just like me.
Oh, really? Yeah, he's like, you have to do it.
I don't think, Rob. I blame him for that.
I saw a lot of similarities. That brother connection that they had is very similar to the strong brother connection that I have.
There is common ground that we share.
If there's a good argument, evidence-based, that with the same amount of money, we can get people moving across the city. It's faster than any other. It's faster than a bus. It can get them across the city for less money. I think there's a good argument that going underground is quick, but at the same time, it's fun to be above ground, right? You can see what's going on around you. It's pretty. It's nice.
Not fun when they're freezing their butts off in the freezing cold, standing outside. Well, some areas, some wards downtown, they have 6 different subway stations. Why? People of Scarborough are different? They're paying their fair share.
No, I see that.
Of taxes, and that's why you always hear Rob and I, for years, preach about subways. And I believe in quality. You build a subway, they'll last 100 years. Streetcars don't last that long. And
but if it takes 100 years to build the subways, what are people going to do?
It's not going to. But the problem is we've ignored it for 30 years in the city.
This is true. We've ignored transit for too long.
We've done 2 kilometers a year. We'd have 60 kilometers of subways.
Let's do what makes sense. If you can get people moving faster today, instead of waiting for 30 years
to
build,
myth.
right?
That's a myth. 80% of the people still drive. I'm going to bring you down the St. Clair disaster. We'll take a run down there. We'll go down St. Clair and cut over.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay. Very good, guys.
Doug hates the right-of-way streetcar tracks along St. Clair Avenue. He believes that mass transit is most effective when buried underground, out of the way of drivers.
So, folks, we're going on the famous St. Clair disaster here. That's exactly what I mean, how they're taking lanes of traffic out to put a streetcar. And if you spot a streetcar, they aren't at full capacity here. But everyone just avoids St. Clair because of those LRT streetcars going down the center of the traffic. It just turns into a nightmare. You talk to the police and you talk to the fire department, they can't stand it. They're stuck. Once you're in these lanes, they have to pull a U-ey. They can't pull a U-ey.
Right.
Well, let's see how this streetcar volume is. That guy's clipping along pretty good. Yeah, it's not a full.
That one didn't look empty though. It looked about half, I gotta say.
Well, you're pushing it, buddy. I'll give you 10%.
I'm pushing it with that. But that was zipping along though, eh?
Oh, was he ever? I counted 4 people on that streetcar there.
Oh, I didn't see that one. That one had.
Okay, so right away, this is what I'm talking about. There's 4 people on the streetcar there.
Yeah.
Another streetcar, 500 yards behind them.
Okay.
And let's see how many people are. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's seven people on that streetcar, and the other one was 4. And that's just a waste of money, back to back. Now, believe it or not, here comes a third one in less than 30 seconds. They're all about a couple hundred yards apart. They all have about 6 or 7 people on them. It's the biggest waste of money.
But you seem to be very, one track on that, no pun intended, that streetcars were the wrong way to go, never the solution. I disagree. I think that streetcars and LRT, should be utilized. I don't think we need to be all or nothing and say that there can't be this type of transit or there has to be that type of transit.
We're driving down the street. We saw 4 empty streetcars, 100 yards apart. And it's just, it's not an efficient way of getting people from point A to point B. It's just a waste of money, what's happening here.
In some areas where he was pointing out that there wasn't ridership, then it got me thinking that, well, maybe if you could make the case based on ridership, maybe people in Ford Nation, but more importantly, anybody would be able to then say, okay, you know what? If there's a good case for this, if there's good evidence for it, maybe I'll consider it.
Let's see.
This one looks packed, man.
There you go. There you go. One winner. You're doing good.
Filled with people, man. This is great. Getting people around. It's accessible.
Oh, that's good.
Full with people.
Okay, he's doing good. 1 out of 10.
Doug wants Jagmeet to meet the people along St. Clair Avenue who were affected by the streetcar development.
You're not cold, huh?
No, I got a lot of insulation. We're just taking a walk along St. Clair Avenue. Yeah. I had an opportunity to pull over, and we met the people. I always call them the real people of Toronto. How you doing, my friend? Good to see you. How's everything? Yes. Real pleasure.
Too bad we lost your brother.
I know. He was the best.
I'm still crying for him.
Yeah, well, thank you. I want to introduce you to one of my friends here, Jagmeet.
Hi there.
He's
How
from
are you,
Brampton.
sir? Pleasure to meet you.
We're just down here looking at the LRTs that are a disaster, in my opinion. Always good to see you. You call me if you need anything at all.
Thank you.
Good to see you, man. How's everything, brother? Good to see you. Okay.
Take a picture with him, please.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Ready?
Excellent. Thank you.
Ready.
There we go.
1, 2, 3.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so
Anything
much.
you
All
need,
the
you
best.
call me.
You too.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, it was really striking. And the funny thing is that he was stopped by such a different demographic. Like there was older, white women that stopped him. He had older men. They were like, hey, away they go. And then young black girls that were like, oh my God, it's Doug Ford.
What's your name? Oh, Denise. Nice, beautiful smile. Look at these smiles. How about you? Canela.
How's it going? You guys go to
Then
school
you
around here?
can take a picture with the girls here. That'd be great.
We'll check this out.
Anything
TV.
you need, you call me. I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, girls. I gotta get my friend Jagmeet in here. He's coming from Brampton. He's a champion, this guy.
Thanks.
He's a champion of the people. Thank you, girls.
To see that, very striking difference in age and race and demographics was really interesting.
This is what keeps Jagmeet and myself going, and I'm speaking for him, is when you're out there, you're meeting the people,
Of course.
you feel like a champion.
It feels good, huh?
Oh yeah, it does it ever.
That's
And
awesome.
if you can help someone, you even feel better.
Yep.
It was great. So we had a good time and introduced Jagmeet to some of these folks, and we had a great time.
Before revealing his date, Jagmeet takes Doug on a tour of Queen's Park.
I still can't get over the fact that I have an office in this building. It's such a cool thing.
That's
Like, I
amazing.
walk up these steps and I think, wow.
Your dad, it must be so proud of you,
Oh,
your
yeah.
parents, your family.
After you.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Word gets to the press
I
gallery
want to get a picture of us.
that Jagmeet is hanging out with Doug at Queen's Park.
Do you want us to pose? Yeah. Some reporters noticed that we were walking in together. They saw Doug and I together. And so they tweeted it out. So immediately the entire Queen's Park media gallery was up and in questions. What's going on? What's happening?
Yeah, we're just hanging
Just
out. Coming up
looking for new
great
candidates,
ideas.
I'm recruiting a new,
Jagmeet, can we ask you, I guess, why you
Recruiting a
decided
star-
to
recruiting
invite
a s-
Doug?
recruiting a star candidate for the ride. I think he'll be one of the best. We'll see. He'll be able to bring home the riding for us. So we're looking forward to it. They said, "What's this all about?" I said, "Oh, I'm recruiting Doug. He's going to run for us."
As he said, he's trying to recruit a guy for the NDP.
And they had this moment of hesitation, like, really? Could that be it? But then like, no, I can't be. I'm like, yeah, it's just a joke. See ya.
Oh, that's good. That is a good one.
All right, man, we're gonna go for a bike ride.
Okay.
You ready for this?
I'm ready. Okay.
I wanted to show what it feels like to be a cyclist in Toronto. And I wanted to show the different types of cycling infrastructure that exist. So that was the idea, to bike around the city instead of driving around the city.
Jagmeet brought me down here, and I got a call saying get a bicycle helmet. I thought, boy, I haven't been on a bicycle in 30 some odd years, and getting strapped up, get the helmet on, and away we went.
I'll show you the
Honestly, I
wonderful
haven't been
world
on a bike in 35 years.
No way. 35 years. That's what he said. He hadn't touched a bike in over 3 decades. So we're gonna go from where it's like really difficult because there's no real protection, and then you're gonna find where it's protected, how much easier and more relaxed you're gonna feel.
Okay.
These are some bikes.
Yeah.
They are City of Toronto, as you know.
Yeah, waste of
And,
money.
They're a great way to get around,
No,
man.
great bikes, but they're a waste of money.
You'll see people ride them even in the winter.
It's great.
Subway gives
What?
you more
Hey,
ways
I'm
to
not
get around.
against them. These are the Deathmobiles we're going on.
We'll be good.
Hey, buddy, I better take a spin around. I haven't
let's try
biked
it.
in 35 years.
Try this.
Holy Christ. Yeah, once it's like
You
riding
got
a
it.
bike, right?
You got
Once
it.
you learn.
We'll just practice around here a bit. Let's do another circle, maybe?
And it has different speeds on it?
Yeah. So you can...
I don't know how you set my speed here, but what the hell?
He did a great job. Having not ridden a bike in so long, he rode really well. He had great balance. All right, let's start our tour of the city on bike.
Tour to Toronto.
Tour to Toronto.
Jagmeet is showing Doug what he thinks the future might look like. A city crisscrossed with dedicated bike lanes, carrying people to and from work, automobile-free.
So Doug, this is the gold standard right here. This is the best.
Yeah.
Amongst the best, because you got fully separated and you're protected, right?
Yeah,
So
no,
this-
I agree, 100%.
This is where you're gonna feel the safest.
Yeah.
Just to feel it, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's one thing to know it. Obviously,
Yeah.
you got a barrier, you feel better, but it's another thing to experience it a bit. So
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be interesting to see. So where you have a fully separated barrier, physical barrier between you and cars as a cyclist, what that feels like, what a line on the road feels like, and what no separation feels like. So this is another level. This is like less protection. You got lines in the road here.
Yeah.
Still a little bit of separation, but this is where you start to feel a bit more vulnerable, right?
Yeah. You're nervous when there's not bike lanes. At least I was. Someone dings you from behind, and we have to do everything we can to make sure there's never a death in the city. One death is way too many when it comes to bicycle riders. We have to make sure that they're safe. And I felt so much safer when it was separated.
So we have cities like Amsterdam where you have amazing amounts of cycling infrastructure. Like the whole city is crisscrossed with bike lanes, like the fully separated ones. And you'll notice in Amsterdam, it's really changed the way the city works. Like people bike everywhere, and you have less cars on the road. There's still cars on the road. There's still people drive around, but like it's a totally different feel. And it's a cold city. It's a cold city like Toronto. They have winters, they have snow, and I feel like that's the direction we should head in, where we can get the entire city moving more by bike. You'll see that it'll free up the roads as well. That's the beauty of it. When you get more people on bike lanes, you get roads start to free up.
But keep in mind, Toronto's 3 times the size of Amsterdam, right?
Toronto is definitely bigger. There's no doubt about that. So we're gonna cross this street and then we're gonna go down Bathurst. We can get off right here, actually. Cross like pedestrians if you want.
My legs are okay. My ass is as sore as anything right now. I guess someone has to come up with a better seat, Jug.
Yeah, eh?
Entrepreneur. There you go.
The seat's not that comfy, eh?
Oh no, it's hard as a rock.
All right, let's cross over here. So I'll just give you we'll quickly chat about it for a sec over here.
Yeah.
So we're gonna bike down this bit right here, just to Harvard, and this is where they've got no either protected lanes or lines in the ground.
Yeah.
So we're gonna be a bit more exposed. All right.
Okay.
Okay, let's do this. You okay?
Can't criticize something that you've never done. And I did a lot of criticism about certain bike lanes in certain parts of the city, certain roads, but I understood. You're nervous when there's not bike lanes.
And on a bicycle, there's problems, but there's also fun. Sunny day, being outdoors, even in cold weather, puts a smile on your face. Getting that exercise, getting the blood flowing makes you feel good. These are actually things that make a city more vibrant. They're not actually negative things. And I wanted him to experience that, and I think that he got to feel that. One thing though I gotta say, it's a cool experience though. Like I got to see things through your perspective. I think it's such a cool thing to do. And I really appreciate you being such a good sport, man. Like, let's do this.
Good.
Right?
I really enjoyed it. Not to mention a little bit of exercise that makes you feel good. And I understand some of his concerns.
We're gonna grab a right here, actually. Yeah. And then we're gonna go down and get warmed up at a...
Oh, they even got signs in a whole bit there.
At a veggie restaurant.
Wow. At the beginning, I was reluctant. I thought it'd take a lot of time, but it was one of the best decisions that I made to, first of all, experience the biking world, let's say, for a day.
He also wasn't just all one-sided. I mean, he was open to say that, hey, bike lanes are important, maybe just not on certain streets. Maybe streetcars make sense where there's enough space and you don't take out traffic. So even his position wasn't so cut and dry as I had initially perceived it to be.
So it's not that anyone's anti-bike lane. It's just let's put them in the right spot. I think through good consultation between the biking association and the community, come up with a happy balance where it's going to work for both. Yeah, I think we change each other's perspective a bit. Matter of fact, they say if everyone's just disagrees a little bit and they walk out of a negotiation, then you have a good deal. If one side's happy and the other side's not, you don't have a good deal.
I don't think it should be one or the other. I think it's whatever makes the most sense. Where subways make sense, if there's some evidence to prove it, build them. Where it makes sense that you can get more use and get more people covered with something that's above ground, do that. But on a nice summer day, we'd rather be outdoors. On a nice spring day, you'd rather be outdoors. Even on a cold day like today, but a sunny day, I'd rather be outdoors as well, taking a streetcar rather than being underground.
And it's not going to happen overnight. That's the thing.
No, I hear you.
But we've ignored it for 30 years in this city.
Well, I have to agree with you on one point. We have to build for the future. He's someone that I would certainly be able to hang out with. I would love to chat with him more if he becomes a colleague, and I wish him well in life.
his background, his culture. I just connected with him immediately. And how can you not with Jagmeet? He's such a great guy. We'll always be friends because of this show. Our doors will always be open, and our house will be always open to each other, and our offices will always be open to each other. Government would be served a lot better if more people had an open mind.
The deadly opioid crisis has spread across Canada and needs urgent attention.
Emergency responders found 3 bodies along with white powder believed to be fentanyl.
The dangers facing drug addicts from overdoses and infectious diseases are greater than ever. Politicians have been divided about the effectiveness of supervised injection sites. Our experiment plays political Cupid by taking 2 opposing politicians out of their comfort zone and forces them to listen to one another.
This isn't a neighborhood issue.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you on the neighborhood
Yeah, I thought that
issues.
might happen.
We're sending them on a series of platonic dates to solve the thorniest issues facing Canadians.
We've made a mistake, and in that mistake, I am watching people die.
It's making it worse on the street.
How can you say it's making it worse?
It's the only city I know that you can cook a shot of heroin on the side of the road.
This is gonna come and bite us on our ass.
Who will seduce the other with logic or passion? And what surprises are in store? This is Political Blind Date.
My grandfather, he was a World War II vet. He never talked about the war. It was awful for him, but it changed the way that he viewed the world. He would often talk to us about the world being run by the people that show up. He'd challenge us. He'd say, find things that you're passionate about and show up. In my early 30s, I had a chance to become a high school teacher, and I devoted most of my career to working with students at risk, poverty, addiction, mental health, and I saw that in every situation, there was a human being that was suffering with an addiction that was outside of their control. That's when I really got the fire in my belly. I realized that I could contribute. On my best days, I'll have a student stop me on the street and let me know that they've opened a business, that they're on the right track. And some of the most difficult days in my job are when I see a former student who is addicted. I see a former student who might be selling sex for money. And I know that we can do so much better. These are human beings. I had the privilege to work with them when they were younger, and they're struggling. And they're a reminder for me of the so many people living in communities across the country that are suffering. To introduce a supervised injection site, this is a direction that we should seriously consider. It's not the entire strategy, but it might be a missing tool in our toolbox.
My parents made their way over to Canada like many other Italians did for a better life. We were one of the first Italian families to move into the corridor, and racism was a huge play on us. Very hard on myself and my brothers, being told things like, you smell, but it made me a tougher person, I think. That's what keeps me elected, is the tough guy approach, the hardness and calling people to task. They want me to fight for everything. They want me to use the language I use. They want me to be as tough as nails, and they won't accept any different. At a moment in my life where I really felt we were making a difference in Toronto, I was diagnosed with an ailment. It took about 2.5 years to recover. It took a toll on my body. It changed my appearance. I did a lot of soul searching. I think I was really hard on people before that. And I think that was almost a signal from God to say, cool it, be a little nicer to people.
Just want to give you some of your background information on safe injection sites.
Yeah. In the issue of addiction, you have to know when to be compassionate and when to be tough. If hospitals provided the drugs that are being provided in the supervised injection sites, those addicts will feel more comfortable and they'll be safer.
Canada has the second highest rate of opioid addiction in the world, behind the United States, and rates continue to skyrocket. Opioids, like heroin, are forms of poppy-derived opium. They've been used medicinally for thousands of years. Synthetic opioids like oxycodone, fentanyl, and hydromorphone are both legally and illegally flooding North America. There are more than 70 supervised injection sites around the world. Evidence shows a reduction in overdoses and in the spread of blood-borne diseases. Critics say that they attract drug dealers, destroy neighborhoods, and create more users. This is a complex issue that involves determining how and where to best offer the service. Matt and Giorgio are spending the day together. Rare for rival politicians. Will they butt heads? Or might they find common ground?
I don't know Mayor Brown that well because he's relatively new to politics.
I don't know a whole lot, actually, about him.
I'm not sure this is going to go very well today.
I'm looking forward to showing him just how wrong he is.
Will he convince me? Unless he's got something new that he's bringing to the table, I don't think he's going to convince me. Your Worship.
Hey, great to see you. How are you? I really wanted this to be a blind date, and so I made it a decision on purpose not to Google Giorgio. Brothers and sisters?
Yep, 3 brothers and 1 sister. There are 5 of us.
Big family.
Very Italian.
I've got a brother, older brother, Jason, and he lives in St. John's, Newfoundland, and a younger sister.
Okay.
Giorgio, I think everyone knows, has got an extensive history in municipal politics. Some people are surprised to learn that he also served as an MPP before that for 4 years in the Bob Rae government.
I didn't really belong there. I didn't feel comfortable. My latter part of my career, I find myself on the right of the political spectrum. I firmly believe that all of us have to help. I also believe that we're spending a lot of money when we don't have to, and more can get done if we just put some thought into dealing with things like that. Like the supervised injection debates that we're all going through.
I thought that might come up today. And
it's here.
Where am I on the political spectrum? I'm in the radical middle, right? And I think you feel the same way from a social perspective. We have a responsibility to our community to make sure that we're taking care and we're looking out for our most vulnerable population.
A supervised injection site community comes with the stigma of what it is, and it does become a little more dangerous. Do you kind of take the same approach that it should be a main road, for instance, in a commercial district? Because I don't necessarily believe that that's where they should be.
I think we have to serve people where they need to be served. We have to recognize that this isn't a neighborhood issue. This is something the entire community needs to address.
I'm going to have to disagree with you on the neighborhood issue.
Yeah, I thought that might happen.
Because I believe it is a neighborhood issue. You and I agree on the principle of all of it, for sure. But I think they should be in a hospital setting.
That's the wrong direction to go, partly because of the cost. And that's what I want to show you today. I want to introduce you to a few people. Are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
Matt wants to take Giorgio somewhere in London that proves how much his city needs a supervised injection site.
Mr. Mayor, can I call you
Always
Matt
Matt.
or Mr. Mayor?
Always Matt.
Okay, and I don't mind being your driver either, Matt.
London is suffering from skyrocketing HIV and hepatitis C rates among intravenous opioid drug users, the highest in Ontario.
I feel it in my gut that the direction that we seem to be going in with this is only going to hurt the community.
The activity, the use is already happening, but right now it's happening an overwhelming number of cases right on our street.
London's HIV/AIDS connection has been serving people affected by HIV and AIDS for 25 years.
Imagine that, I'm on your left.
I think everybody's on my left.
Thanks.
The equipment is a vehicle to ensure people are safe, but then there's a whole nother element to relationship, information, education, and referrals out to other services that can help people have better health outcomes. And that's what the work here is all about.
What Brian Lester's doing with his group is phenomenal work. It's based on expertise of those with lived experience, but we can do better. When we talk about a safe injection site in a neighborhood, for example, I think is part of the solution. There's a whole lot more to the solution. It's not a silver bullet. Yeah. But we were also talking about your idea, which was it should be in an institution, perhaps a hospital.
Yeah, I do have a number of...
Let me elaborate on that.
Yes.
One of the reasons I say this is because...
You won't give me a chance to put words in your mouth?
I've never allowed anybody to do that.
Today's not going to be that.
Today's not going to be any different. But I just don't think that by putting one location in each city, you're necessarily getting to the problem. I believe that hospitals are a good setting because they're in every community.
Here's what we know about this specific population. They don't connect well with traditional healthcare services. In fact, many of the people that we served talk about going to the hospital with healthcare problems and issues and to merge, and it's not a positive experience for them. It will be very challenging to redirect injection drug users to a large hospital institution when really they're already anchored into community.
We want to make sure that services are accessible to people that need them. We need to go where they are.
The more you distribute a service like this, you know, there's costs. There's factors related to costs.
Okay,
that we
can
have
we talk about that for a second?
Sure.
Because costs for me is everything. And while some...
But you want to put it in a hospital. I can't think of a more expensive option.
But see, I disagree. I think it's going to be cheaper by
Nothing cheap happens in a hospital.
Services. Well, it will to municipalities because I believe it's a provincial responsibility. I believe health issues are a provincial responsibility. This is going to come and bite us on our ass. I am so sure of it. We're all doing the right thing. You're doing the right thing. Mr. Mayor, you're doing the right thing. But at the end of the day, somebody at a provincial level is going to stop the funding. And then what do you do at that point?
My grandma used to say, if ifs and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. And sometimes we government things to death. I can anticipate that there are costs associated with this, but there's a cost to doing nothing as well. We need to serve those members of our community who are dealing with addiction, who are using where they are. To suggest that the supervised injection site should take place in a hospital just doesn't seem like a workable solution to me.
For me, our social costs are eating up the municipal budgets every time we take something on.
I look at it as there really is only one taxpayer, and somebody has to pay for it. And moving this to a hospital or institutionalizing it is only going to add to the bottom line.
Next, Matt takes Giorgio into the part of the city where the opioid crisis is the worst, to meet a local doctor who has seen the effects firsthand.
In London, essentially 100% of our opioid problem is prescription. It wasn't uncommon in this city to have people prescribed 5,000 milligrams of morphine equivalent per day. The new recommendations from both our new guidelines and the CDC guidelines is 50 milligrams of morphine equivalent per day. The problem in the city started with physicians and the drug company misleading us into believing we had a safe product.
There's a doctor with a great deal of courage. Also a doctor who doesn't mind saying, I don't think you're right.
Well, maybe what I can do is take you to this alley over here.
Okay.
My husband comes here every day at 10 o'clock for coffee. One day when he was here, they saw a young woman injecting in this alley. After she'd injected, some people were here quite quickly that they were quite concerned were actually more likely taking advantage of her state than they were helping her.
Seen some very strange things going on from this window. But just recently actually saw a young woman shooting up her boyfriend in the neck. Okay. Just right over there on that concrete slab.
This is where people find sanctuary so that they can come and inject because we don't have a place where people can come and inject safely.
What I'm afraid of is the repercussions of making a mistake.
We've made a mistake. And in that mistake, I am watching people die. And I'm watching people die that don't need to die, that wouldn't have to die if they had services that met their needs. The services aren't meeting their needs. We do know from whether it's the model in Vancouver or the models in Europe that one of the strategies that can help meet people's needs and decrease the amount of people that have to die needlessly from something completely preventable is a supervised injection site that is attached to services.
We actually met an addict on the sidewalk here. He actually came up to us. He thought we were police officers. And I asked him a couple of questions. Yeah.
Why did you start? And he said, my life got complicated.
Right.
He's 29 years old.
Yeah.
And you said, what if you die?
Right. He said, if I die, I die. He didn't care about his own life.
If you don't believe you're worthy, you can't get into recovery. The first thing you need is an encounter with somebody who validates that you are important, that you have meaning, that we are doing this because you're worth it. And right now, the message is more, we aren't providing this service because you're not worth it. And that's how they hear it. There has to be a solution, and we can't just put it off till we're comfortable with what that looks like. And you know what? We might make a mistake. We might not create the perfect model the first time. But every time we let someone die because we haven't felt comfortable with the model, we've let that person down.
We have to listen to the doctors who have the courage to stand up to say, what we're doing right now isn't working. We can do better. This has been a great day. I'm looking forward to day number 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Giorgio believes that he can only illustrate his point of view through a visit to Vancouver. The downtown east side of Vancouver has the highest density of intravenous drug users in North America. To help save lives, a supervised injection site called Insight was established in 2003. Since opening, there have been no overdose deaths inside the facility.
But it's really turned that community into not a very pleasant feel. And that's been my argument.
Giorgio wants to show Matt that new businesses can be adversely affected in these neighborhoods.
Prior to Insight opening, there wasn't much of a difference in the optics of how the neighborhood looked, except you would see far more in-your-face public drug use. And
so that was more?
Yeah, it was way more. So Insight at least gives an opportunity for people to do it in a private way and being able to do it in a location. That doesn't stop people from shooting up everywhere.
You know, why did you locate a business here?
In Vancouver, you know, as what you guys are going through in Toronto right now, soaring real estate prices.
Yeah.
You know, restaurants are basically the riskiest venture you can possibly do. My wife tells me that, thank you every day. You know, so anyway, we opened in February 2013 in the middle of a process where they were doing what's called the local area planning process. As soon as we opened, we were used as an example. And we had a lot of people protesting us. And they used that as political capital and lobbying power against the government to be able to say, we're protesting this business and we're going hard and we're going to shut it down.
What was the protest about?
Gentrification.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of bad things happened. It was hell. It was hell. We got protested longer in one location sustained than the Iraq War. We got protested for 9 months straight. So I think what we fail at miserably here is we have 350 nonprofits serving a community of 2,500 people that are vulnerable in a radius of 10 blocks that gets $350 million a year. When this was happening, I mean, I'm just like, are you kidding me? Because there's so many people that are profiting off of this poverty industry that is in this neighborhood.
Do you find that many of the people that are in that industry, that are making those salaries, that are those, in some cases, even the bureaucrats from government, that was a part of the attack? Is that the system itself wouldn't allow you in?
I'd say there's a little bit of that, but I would never want to rumor to that kind of side and say that. That was a little too controversial.
I'm the kind of politician that would actually say that.
Yeah.
Because I know that happens.
Well,
right?
We have very different politicians in Vancouver, I will say that nicely.
So you're...
They wouldn't even, I will say that during the entire time that we were protested, I did not get much support from our municipal government.
All right, you don't need to say anymore.
Yeah. We're in the epicenter of the worst situation it's possibly can be. Yeah. It could happen quite quickly in any of your cities. Until we start making those long-term investments, we're hooped. Yeah. And doing a success metrics kind of style to this, where we're actually saying dollars going in here and outcome is coming out here.
That's what my constituents would like to see.
Yeah. And those are hard. Those are unquantifiable. Like sometimes it's a life.
Yeah.
If I knew my daughter was going to die tomorrow, I would rob and steal and raise as much money as possible to make sure that that doesn't happen. And so everybody down here that is an addict or whatever is someone's daughter or son.
That's right.
You know? And so I always look at it as it is a human life no matter what. And we have to do what we have to do to try and preserve that.
9 months of demonstrations, 9 months of people telling him to shut down as an entrepreneur because they didn't want business in the community. That wasn't driven by the addicts. That was driven by the people that are afraid that if business changes things for the better, that their jobs will be lost. That's what happened there. Nobody wanted to talk about it today, but that's what happened there. And if you dig deep enough, you'll find that I'm right.
It's clear in my mind that we need people like him making those kinds of investments and taking those kinds of risks.
And they almost brought him down, right? So it's scary.
Talk about tough.
And he agreed with me a few times, which is even better, isn't it?
I think he was just being nice.
Maybe.
So this is Insight right here.
Well, yeah, and my point is this. Why are they taking the drugs on the street still?
In order to learn more about the neighborhood, Giorgio takes Matt to meet with the head of the local Business Improvement Association, or BIA.
We see the challenges a little more acutely than a lot of the other BAs, obviously. But this crisis that we're in with the fentanyl crisis and drug issues is really hitting citywide, but we...
And you're taking that on too? As,
Oh, of course. I mean, we're right here in the thick of it.
How are your businesses doing? Are you seeing growth? Are you seeing businesses open? Are you seeing businesses closed?
Yeah. So we've actually seen a lot of businesses open in the past five or so years. You know, I think one of the huge measures of success that we use is how integrated are our businesses into the community.
This BIA is different. They have incorporated a social feel to it, and they have to. It's providing the services that government should be providing.
In the 90s, when there was the former major drug crisis, that's, I think, when the downtown east side really started to deteriorate. It was mostly because the provincial government decided to place a lot of the resources right here in the neighborhood. So resources from health services to welfare services to all those things, plus all the social housing that's here in the neighborhood is really concentrated.
Do you believe that if it was spread out, that you'd get a lot less of this? And
100%. That may not be a very popular opinion.
But that's from planning policies on down.
It is.
Right?
Really, it's hard to reverse that, you know?
Of course it is, yeah.
So looking back, I wish that a lot of, you know, neighborhoods had accepted a lot of the stuff back in the day, but now that we're in this...
We're all in it together.
We're all in it together, but it's also
it
a lot of, like, the police department and all that view it in some ways as containment, and that's a really dangerous mindset. It really stigmatizes people that live here, the neighborhood as a whole.
This is absolutely the most complicated situation that exists in our entire country.
I think that much of what we're talking about is government's fault. It's the easy way out. Pick a community, tell everybody this is where our programs are going to go. We're seeing the chaos that comes out of it. In Vancouver, there's chaos.
Oh, where's he go?
I'm sorry.
We live at Balmoral.
Okay.
Top here.
Yeah.
And we're being threatened because...
Meet you, man.
No, we don't go down.
Okay.
Well, teach me. By saying to people, this is the community that allows you to take the drugs that you won't get arrested for.
Whenever we got money,
Is not the appropriate way to deal with this crisis. And I don't care what anybody says.
It's the only city I know that you can sit up and cook a shot of heroin on the side of the road in front of two cops.
Right.
This is what this is all about.
I feel strongly about it. I feel that we're making a huge mistake here.
They told us that the safe injection sites would actually take it off of the streets. But instead, what I'm seeing is it's making it worse on the streets.
How can you say it's making it worse on the streets? Because you've said that a number of times.
You saw a number of people taking drugs as we were
when I was here 20 years ago, before a safe injection site was in this neighborhood, all of the same problems existed. So how is this making it worse? I'm hearing from the BIA that businesses are opening and that businesses are growing. I'm hearing from just the statistics of the millions of injections that have occurred inside a site that aren't occurring out on the street. And so this neighborhood has challenges. There's no question about that. But they existed before the site.
We're counting on government way too much here. And because of the government program and programs that have been established here, everybody's coming here for that particular program. If we were just to establish them in different pockets around the city, this would not exist. You wouldn't get the flow of
and that's
drugs
where we
onto the
disagree,
streets.
because
You would get
before
more
there was a supervised
controlled
injection
kind of
site,
stuff.
these issues existed.
I get it. We're doing our best to try to save lives, but it's not getting better, it's getting worse.
And I don't know how you can say that. I don't know how you can say it's getting worse. The problems existed in this neighborhood before that site opened. We know that. We also know that of all of the injections that have occurred inside one of these supervised sites in Vancouver, there have been 0 deaths. How many deaths are occurring in the street compared to that 0?
There's still deaths going on.
That's right, and that's a significant number.
But we opened up the clinics.
We need to understand that this problem existed before that site opened.
I think you're both absolutely right in some extent.
Our mediator.
No, for real. This is what we need. Because I think that you know, you're right. It was here before, and you're right that there are more people using. But I think that inside is not the solution, and I think you both agree on that.
I think that's exactly what we agree on.
And also inside is not. It's not big enough for the capacity of users that we're seeing today in the crisis that we're facing, and so hence the need for more.
There's addiction, there's a crisis, people are dying. We know that. But we've also learned, I think, from East Hastings that it doesn't necessarily work.
Well, I mean, it's helping save lives, and at the end of the day, that's really what we want to do.
I mean, isn't that it, right?
Yeah,
At the center of every one of these challenges is a human being. Some of the strategies that Giorgio has brought forward over the course of the 2 days that we spent together really seem not well thought out. They seem to run counter to the evidence that we see that's available to us, not just here in Canada, but the 90 sites that also offer safe injection facilities around the world. Yeah, we agree on almost everything. We just disagree on the parts where you're wrong.
I just I'm going to take every shot you give at me, Matt, because it's the politically correct thing to do. But I just don't agree with the storefront concept and how that has taken away the livelihood of communities.
Matt is a wonderful human being. I mean, the compassion that man has certainly made its way into my heart. I've seen it.
Giorgio has devoted his life to serve in a political capacity, and I've got a huge amount of respect for that.
I won't tell him personally. I won't say to him, this is what you've been able to teach me. But certainly I've listened to some of the things he said.
Sì, parlo italiano. Tu parli italiano? Ah, he knew I was telling right away.
Yeah, just like that.
What is it, the walk?
Yeah, maybe so.
It's the strut.
That's hilarious, you know? Giorgio and I agree on about 99% of this issue.
There isn't anything that him and I can't work on. And that only proves to me that you can really work with anybody if you really want to do in this business. Our problem is we're too stubborn as politicians. We have to start listening to each other.
A large part of our population is being wasted. Many men and women at all ages are confined in institutions, in reformatories, and in prisons.
What happens when someone goes to jail? Most of us have no idea. It's an issue few of us consider, unless we know someone who is incarcerated. Hidden away inside our prisons, some people are suffering without enough help. Critics say that our correction system is long out of date, that federal prisons have been reformed, but the provinces need to catch up. What's going on in our prisons that we don't know about? And what needs to be fixed? Our experiment plays political Cupid by taking two opposing politicians out of their comfort zone.
Decisions are hard to make sometimes as a government.
And forces them to listen to one another.
She can tell me whatever she wants. I don't have to listen to her.
We're sending them on a series of platonic dates to solve the thorniest issues facing Canadians.
And my job is to hold her feet to the fire.
Who will seduce the other with logic or passion? And what surprises are in store? This is Political Blind Date.
My entire title is Reverend Dr. Cheri DiNovo, and I'm the Member of Provincial Parliament for Parkdale High Park. I left home at 15 and certainly had brushes with the police and, was drug involved. Came to the street because it was safer than home. I kind of realized at a certain point that my mood was dependent on my company's billings every month. And I thought, this isn't a way to live. So I decided to go back to school and do a master's in divinity. And it was in the city that I performed the first legalized same-sex marriage. We got a lot of press. The church wasn't so happy. Didn't get a lot of support from my denomination at that point, but certainly did put our church on the map. This, needless to say, brought me to the attention of my political party, the NDP. Obviously, I'd always been a lefty, a social justice activist. They asked me if I would consider running in politics. I said yes. I thought that maybe I could affect change more in those green leather seats at Queen's Park than in the pulpit. She was strip searched, she was sent to a male prison, she was kept in solitary confinement, all because she is transsexual. And she is suing this minister's ministry because of her treatment.
Well, my name is Marie-France Lalonde. I'm the Minister of Community Safety and Correctional Service and the Minister of Francophone Affairs of Ontario. But above all this, I'm the MPP for Ottawa-Orléans. I would say 18, 19, 20 years old. I had said one day I'll enter politics. I studied administration and then I went to become a social worker. And I think that's what led me to want to enter politics. And I think politics has that opportunity where you can be part of changes.
But Mr. Speaker, if I can say here, part of our efforts to transform our correction in Ontario, and my objective is very simple, and I think we on this side of the House, our objective is very simple, is definitely to rehabilitate the clients and support their reintegration back into our society.
I have the responsibility of our 26 institutions in Ontario, which I take this very seriously, because I think there's lots of work that we have started and we need to continue. Last time we opened the Act of Correction was in the 1990s, long time ago. Population have changed in our correction system. Our inmates were different. Now, a large proportion are people awaiting trial or bail. We have mental health. We have a drug and addiction situation. That's why it's important to look at the Act and see how we can do change.
Many believe that we can judge how evolved our society is by how we treat those in prison. And that prison population has changed significantly. Convicted criminals serving less than 2 years are under provincial jurisdiction, as are people held in custody that are charged with a crime but not yet convicted. The Correctional Services Act of Ontario has not been updated in more than 2 decades, and its critics want to see it brought into the 21st century. But it's not just the prisons that need updating. The entire system of community safety services, from provincial policing to inquests, needs an overhaul. It's a big job, but does the government have the appetite for it? Marie-France and Cheri are spending the day together, rare for rival politicians. Will they butt heads, or might they find common ground?
How are you doing?
Very well.
Latte, please. She's a relatively new cabinet minister, and the correction system itself is far from where it should be.
There you go.
In the legislature, I am on one side of the House, she is on the other side of the House, and what we do is debate. This is, I think, the greatest opportunity where I'm going to get to know Cheri, and she's going to get to know me outside our legislature in a more, I would say, human approach to what we've experienced every single day.
Imagine just being elected and elected right into being a cabinet minister, like you've never been elected before, and all of a sudden you're in charge of a ministry. As an opposition member, my job is to make sure it's done.
So it'll be an interesting component to see as we go outside, we get to know each other, and as we connect, how each of our dates towards each other will bring awareness to the issues that we both are going through every day.
Hello, Minister. A little chilly.
Well, I have a jacket, yeah, a long sleeve.
How are you doing? I'm good. I'm good.
So how do you combine being a minister within the congregation and your MPP role and everything?
I don't because they're both full-time. It really is my true love, and it's way more fun preaching than it is standing up in the house, because when you preach, people don't usually yell at you.
I was saying I'm a little bit nervous because usually I know my every day, my every movement of my day is very structured, so this is kind of new for me, so.
There was a real issue, and there still is an issue, with trans folk in incarceration. And trans women in particular are being put in the male prisons, which is incredibly dangerous. I know that that has been presumably addressed, but you know, we still hear stories that it's problematic. So I was going to ask you, what's up with that?
As we're going through this transformation of our correction system, I think this is something quite important, and my understanding is we've addressed it.
There's still more to do.
Oh, for sure.
There's still more to do.
It's not going to be easy because there's different views, but I really feel strong that this is in the best interest of our inmates.
Anyway, Minister, people to meet, places to go.
We are parliamentarian. We're having different stripe in terms of political party, but ultimately we are human. Are you able to tell me who is my political blind date?
Oh, you'll be fine. I'll tell you that.
Cheri has arranged to introduce Marie-France to Boyd Kodak, a transgender man who is misplaced and abused inside the correction system.
Boyd had a particular story to tell about what life is like for a trans person in the correction system, and I thought it was an important story, a necessary story for a Minister of Corrections to hear.
Boyd lives north of Toronto, near an isolated lake.
So where should we?
You want to sit here? Is that good?
Yeah. Is this okay?
This is good.
What happened to me when I was in corrections, it's just something that will never, ever go away from my life. I was arrested, and then when they took me into this room, there was like 4 women. They made me strip search. But this time they decided that that I had to remove my penile prostheses. They felt the need to hold it up and look at it and then pass it around the room amongst them. I mean, it was just devastating. I mean, and then they said, okay, we're confiscating it. I said, what? And they said, it's a dangerous weapon. I said, excuse me? How could it possibly be a dangerous weapon? And they said, well, you never know. You might take it off or something and stick it down someone's throat and try to choke them or something like totally insane. Then they took all my clothes, so I was thrown into the segregated cell, and the next morning, bang, 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 bang. Okay, let's go. Going back to Toronto, and they said, yep. I said, okay, thank you. I said, may I have my clothes, please? And they said, no. I said, I was promised. I said, I need to have my clothes. I said, I can't go to Toronto like this. I said, look at me. They said, just get in the van. I got in the van, and I was taken back to Toronto. But they kept my clothes, they kept my ID, they kept my house keys, they kept my car keys, basically everything I had. So I was released on the streets of Toronto in women's clothes. So basically, as far as I'm concerned, I was put in harm's way. So then I filed a claim, Ontario Human Rights claim. Felt it was really important to make sure that this doesn't happen to anybody ever again. Basically, I went into such post-traumatic stress and severe depression afterwards that my whole life fell apart.
Like, what is it, the solution from those guidelines that you feel very strong about?
Training, and accountability is the biggest problem, because
So training and education for those in the system.
the system is so important. Training is vital, and it's vital that it be done by trans people from,
Yeah, so maybe we can, in a different context, meet again.
That would be great, because
I don't know if you realize we're going to bring new legislation on correction services
No, I
and
didn't.
reforms. So we're
Okay.
opening the act.
Oh, good.
And there may be an opportunity where we can
That would be
potentially
terrific.
So it's a very
Awesome.
good time for you
That
to
would be
speak
really
to
good, because, we really need some follow-through on this now,
I thought that she would really be compassionate enough to understand how traumatic that experience was for Boyd. So I'm glad they met.
Thank you for listening. I can't tell you how much that means to me.
It's a pleasure.
It's really, really important.
I'm sorry.
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry.
Sure.
We'll meet again. I reassure you. So
Yeah.
we'll meet closer to my work, and,
Yeah.
and then we can really talk.
Okay, that
Okay?
sounds terrific.
Thank you.
Okay.
We have to say thank you to this person, to have shared what happened to him. Like I say, terrible, terrible circumstances.
What did you think of meeting Boyd?
Amazing gentleman who, I would say, been able to shine a light on the very, very important issues. I think the training and the accountability, those are the two key factors that he was really reflecting strongly to me. I was quite concerned about the fact that his health now seems a little concerning in my opinion, so I hope he's going to be okay.
So thank you for taking part and listening, because I think it meant a lot to him.
I really mean this, that we will see each other again, because I want to hear where we could improve our system even furthermore, right? We want to make sure that this will never happen again to anyone.
Now it's Marie-France's turn.
Hi, Marie-France.
How are you?
Good,
Long
good.
time no see. Yes. How are you feeling?
I'm good.
Are you ready?
I'm so ready.
Well, I've got some wonderful people for you to meet this
Wonderful.
morning. Okay. So, you're ready for today?
I am. I have no idea what you've got in store for me, so.
Your dates were wonderful individual who had some challenges actually within our institutions, and I think we're gonna try to bring a little bit of that perspective throughout the day, but our way, my way, I guess.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. So do you know where you are?
No, I don't. Where are we?
Okay.
I haven't been paying attention.
I'm glad, because
I saw the coroner's office. Are we at the coroner's office?
Then I'm more excited, because then I know you probably never met this
No,
person.
definitely not.
Well,
Well,
there it is.
I've never been here before. I'm really excited about this.
That's great. I think you'll be excited.
This is a brand new facility as well,
Very
right?
much so, yes.
The minister is not just determined to modernize prisons. As public safety minister, she oversees death investigations of Ontarians, including those who might die in prison.
And this is where the morgue is housed as well?
That's my understanding.
Oh, exciting. It's really quite an honor. Hello, Dr. Hired.
Hi,
Cheri
Dr.
DiNovo.
Hired.
It's
Nice
an
to meet you.
honor.
Dr. Hired is the chief coroner of Ontario, and I was happy to know that Cheri had never met him. I didn't want to say doctor, because I felt that, we may
give it away.
may give it away.
I read what everybody reads in the newspapers about what goes on in inquests, and I'd seen the results of inquests. But I'd never really talked to anyone who worked in that system at a higher level.
I have no problem listening. I don't always do it people may suggest, but I'll tell people. I'll tell people. I mean, I'll say it. This perspective of, you can't talk to the minister. I was like, I can talk to the minister. She can tell me whatever she wants. I don't have to listen to her. I mean, if it's about specifically, obviously, something under her authority, different story. But there isn't anything in the Coroner's Act that she has any authority over. As far as my day-to-day money budget, yes, absolutely. But as far as that, but there's nothing wrong. So people say, well, you can't talk. And I said, I can talk.
He said,
but
why not? It's appropriate that we have those open conversations. When
Absolutely.
you say, which is good conversation, it's important conversation that we have. So maybe let us know a little bit about the before and the after of this program.
So when we look at inquests, and inquests are public hearings that are held before a jury of 5, and the purpose is to understand the circumstances of death, bring those to the ascertainment of the public, and then the collaboratively work together with all of the participants to come, hopefully develop recommendations to inform future prevention efforts. Because it's a collaborative and because everybody brings different interests, the family will be clearly a key contributor, as would others. And so in a police-related death, so where the police unfortunately were required to use of force, then led to somebody's death, then the police would be participating, the Police Services Board, the ministry would be potentially participating, the family would be participating, and then others who have a public interest, such as mental health organizations, may be participating. So what's happened historically is we do not fund legal fees from our budget. The families would be required to fund the counsel. What we heard from many families that they felt that the playing field wasn't level for them. So they wanted to contribute to help to improve the approach to use of force and to police interactions, but they weren't always in a financial situation that they could. And so that limited things. And so what happened is then the government has taken a step to put in a process that allows families to be reimbursed for legal fees in police-related deaths.
Which is a very good thing.
Yes. So there is a process that they have to go through, but they would be reimbursed as long as they have standing and they can proceed with this. We started this about a month ago. It's grandfathered for 2 years, so family will be able to be reimbursed. And we're reviewing right now how big the scope of that fund could potentially be, and that's going to be the next conversation. There's an opportunity to strengthen, and that's how he sees his role, is to work closer in terms of making those recommendations, because ultimately, I would say for me as a minister is I want those recommendations to be part of something that we can adopt.
And it'll lead to much better and more accurate inquests.
Well, that's the hope, right?
Yeah.
The family has the ability to provide their specific perspectives.
I didn't know about that program. That's a very good step forward. I would, of course, like to see more legal aid, as it were, extended to more people. One of the problems with this justice system, period, is lack of access. Absolutely, it's been a pleasure.
Well,
thank you very much.
Thanks for your questions.
Yeah.
No, we'll do this because
I'm not sure that he's going to get what he's looking for from this administration, or maybe any administration, but I wish him well, and it's really good to know that there's somebody there who seems very vested in getting redress for victims and their families, and that's clearly important to me.
Cheri,
so
what did you think about, how did you like your political date?
I was fascinated. Thank you so much for that. No, it was really fascinating. First of all, fascinating to be in the place. Yeah. It was also fascinating he's an amazing individual. We're in good hands, Marie-France. Hear me saying that?
Marie-France has an ambitious plan to overhaul the Corrections Act, and she's about to reveal her secret weapon to Cheri.
Hello.
Hi.
It's an honor.
Howard Sapers. Hello, Minister.
Mr. Sapers.
How are you?
How are you doing?
I'm very well.
Thank
How are
you
you?
very much for joining us.
Population have changed in our correction system. We're talking about this with Mr. Sapers right now. We have to look at how we address that kind of system that we are having today.
If you've got chronic overuse of segregation, then segregation is really a symptom of other issues. And so the idea that this report was going to fix segregation is not the right idea. The idea behind the report was to reduce the use of segregation, improve accountability when segregation is imposed, and improve the conditions of confinement for those who must be segregated. It's really a package of reforms, and they will then trigger other reforms throughout the system.
It's been called torture.
Yeah.
Would you use that strong a term?
You know, I have seen situations where people have been inappropriately segregated, where they've been mistreated, and where the conditions of confinement I would define as cruel. Prison is no picnic, and being in segregation is the most austere form of imprisonment in Canada. It's being confined in a cell about the size of a bathroom, in some cases for 23 hours a day. In some cases, we found actually for 24 hours a day, and sometimes days on end. Some segregation cells don't have windows, so there's no natural light. Many segregated inmates have complained that they don't get fresh air, sometimes for days on end. It's a very unnatural way for anybody to live, and that's why there has to be a very strong, very robust legal and policy framework around it. It is the ultimate interference with somebody's liberty, so we have to make sure that it's compliant with the law. We have to make sure that our policy is respectful. We have to make sure that the way it works keeps everybody safe. So whenever the legal authorities are interfering in the lives of somebody, it has to be the least restrictive. And when you think about that, it makes sense. You don't want the police using more force as necessary. You don't want sentences to be any longer than they have to be, and you don't want corrections to impose conditions that are more restrictive than necessary to achieve the purpose of the sentence.
Now, I've heard this from corrections, you know, we don't have enough mental health provided, we don't have enough support, we're backs against the wall, what else do we do? You know,
So there's going to be another report.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. And the reason why I took on this assignment for Ontario is because I'm convinced that Ontario has recognized those problems. The time is now here to do something about those problems. So more emphasis on mental health, more emphasis on physical health, more emphasis on individualized, risk-managed case assessment. So in other words, looking at individuals and their needs and risks instead of looking at populations. Ontario, as other jurisdictions, has some other issues they have to deal with as well. Why are 2/3 or more of our people in custody on remand status? This is new. This is new in Canada, and it's not unique to Ontario. Right across the country, we're seeing 50, 60, and 70% of the people in custody legally not being guilty of anything, being held pre-trial or awaiting a bail determination. In May, I delivered a report to the government with 63 recommendations. None of them were small, and the response was enthusiastic and immediate. And one of the big outcomes of that will be a new correctional act, new law for Ontario that will help modernize the system. It'll help drive changes.
I think we're in a place where, yes, the ideology is there, but let's be practical in improving the condition and the situation and ensuring that those individuals who sadly have encountered our justice system are having the best opportunity to be rehabilitated and reinserted into our community. Mr. Sapers has done his part. He will continue to be part of our transformation. Now it's time for us to demonstrate that we'll bring the most recommendation possible into an act.
We're seeing some movement in terms of his recommendations, and it seems even in the government response, which is very positive. Now, the question is, all of what else needs to happen. And happy that changes are being made. So
We're going to work on that. I think every day is a new day, and we're fully committed, and we're going to continue working with Mr.
And my
Sapers.
job is to hold her feet to the fire and make sure she does.
And that's good. That's what this is all about.
Yep.
This is a man who's been passionate about these issues for his entire life, who I have a lot of respect for. It was fun to have a chance to sort of ask him even the philosophical questions, like, should we even have prisons?
I hope you enjoy your political blind date.
I did, Marie-France. Thank you so
and
much.
I really appreciate,
Yes.
actually, you agreeing, and I think we both agree on
Yes,
this
yes,
without knowing what this was all about.
No,
so
it was
hope that,
fantastic.
and
Thank you
thank
so
you
much.
for sharing, too, with me my political blind date. It was wonderful.
Okay.
I'll see you
We'll
in
see you soon.
September.
Or sooner.
Oh, sooner. Take care. Bye-bye for
Bye-bye.
now. Okay. The political blind date has been an extraordinary adventure. It has allowed me to also see through the eye of Cheri DiNovo.
It's pretty clear proof now that this is what her senior advisors are telling her and her ministry. Will it happen? Yeah, I live in hope or I wouldn't do this job. So, but that's a lot to accomplish, but it's doable. I'm going to be the minister at Trinity St. Paul's United Church on Bloor, just by Spadina, which is a center of arts, faith, and justice, which is exactly where I want to be.
We need to say thank you to her in her advocacy. We need to recognize her terrific job that she's done for her community and also for all Ontarians.
There's a shortage of adequate and available public housing in Canada's largest cities.
The City of Toronto is fast earning the reputation of being Canada's worst landlord.
Some say that Toronto's public housing model is unfixable, while others believe creative solutions can offer a brighter future for those in need. Our experiment plays political Cupid by taking two politicians out of their comfort zone and forces them to listen to one another.
We'd love to have some provincial funding.
The money's on its way.
Right, it's always on its way.
We're sending them on a series of platonic dates to solve the thorniest issues facing Canadians.
One of the community officers referred to the kids in Alex Park as the cockroaches in the community. People aren't living there now, no.
Yeah.
They're living in there?
North York was a failure. Look what North York built.
They just want to get us out?
Who will seduce the other with logic or passion? And what surprises are in store? This is Political Blind Date.
I grew up in a household of politically active parents. My dad was an architect who was also a politician, who was also a journalist. And my mom worked for the Law Society of Upper Canada, helped establish the legal aid clinic system in the country. The table talk was about how you built neighborhoods and how you used the construction of neighborhoods to solve personal problems, social problems, city problems, national problems, global problems. My dad had been a prominent Liberal in the 60s and had gone to Pierre Trudeau, gone to the Liberal Party and said, you need to have a national housing program. And Pierre Trudeau basically kicked him out of the party, told me he was nuts, and denounced this renegade group of Liberals talking about urbanism. I went into local politics because I was tired of watching progressive politicians saying they couldn't fix the housing crisis in this country. And I just didn't believe it. Served at 2 terms of city council, and it became apparent that you weren't going to solve the problems that the city was having if you just stayed inside the city boundaries. When you think back to my dad, who's passed away obviously in 2000, one of the things I remember in the carnival around his funeral was a very private moment with myself, thinking about him and committing to him that I'd get the job done for him. When he passed away, the National Housing Strategy was a dream, and now it's a reality, and I'd like to think I played a bit of a role in making good on his early work.
My father passed away. He died of leukemia, and my mother and my 2 brothers and I ended up in social housing. The experience is not a positive one. I mean, it gets you off the street, but it doesn't fill you with hope or any fond memories. It was harder than childbirth for me to leave social housing. It's the hardest thing I ever had to do. I made a speech, I think it was in 1980 or 79 or 80, and I got a rush from the speech. Before that, I was very shy. I missed my high school and my university graduations because I was too shy to cross the stage. So I got this rush and I thought I should be speaking up for people. That's how it started. It's very difficult to make changes in social housing because the political lack of will is something that will stop you at every turn.
We lobbied for decades, every government level, for more attention to this community, and we haven't gotten it.
Since the Conservative government of Mike Harris downloaded social housing, the Liberals have had 15 years to right the wrong. There's no interest in righting this egregious wrong. It's lip service because it's popular to pay lip service, but it's not popular to put real money into programs for the poor.
As it rapidly expands, Toronto is struggling to meet its public housing needs. The Toronto Community Housing Corporation, or TCHC, owns more than 2,000 buildings, housing approximately 164,000 tenants. The pressure to build new units and fix its massive repair backlog is felt intensely at City Hall. More than $1 billion is needed to do the work, money the city does not have. The 2017 federal budget promises billions for housing over the next decade. But is it too late? Although considered political allies, Adam and Maria share different views about public housing. Will they butt heads, or might they find common ground?
I've never talked to him actually about the specifics of affordable housing.
I would argue a false divide in city politics is this notion of a suburban downtown divide. Somehow, the two solitudes are radically different.
The old city of Toronto was much wiser. They supplied good community services that offer the safety net. We didn't do that in the suburbs.
Yeah, I can show her how the federal money is rolling into cities.
My expectations are not high. I've been dealing with this for well over 30 years. My heart's been broken many, many times.
City Hall has been crying out for this money for the better part of a quarter century. Now that they're getting it, it's time for them to lead.
We continue the farce of saying we're building affordable housing. We're not building affordable housing. If you look up what affordable means, you wouldn't be able to afford it.
Time to complain is over. The time to build is in front of us.
I'm not passionate. I'm the opposite of passionate. I'm dispassionate because I have no hope anymore.
How are you?
How are you?
Good. Do you want some coffee?
What kind of coffee?
Munja cake coffee.
Oh, no.
How are you?
Good.
Welcome
Good.
downtown.
It is like another city, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's different. Just as my journalism career was starting, she emerged onto city council. Clearly a new Democrat from the suburbs, which is a bit of a rare bird. I was fascinated to see someone whose roots in the suburbs were from the very communities that she represented.
I certainly felt the stigma of living in public housing when I was a student at Nelson Boylan on Falstaff, which is closing now. We'd love to have some provincial funding to make it into a community center.
The money's on its way.
Right, it's always on its way.
No,
Okay.
it's on its way.
What do you mean?
It's the federal budget. It all kicks in next year. The commitment in the campaign was $20 billion. We've overachieved that in housing with some loans and stuff, but it's about 3/4 of the money is going to housing, 1/4 is going for social infrastructure.
For community centers?
It's up to the city to prioritize.
You're going to leave it up to the city?
Yeah.
To decide?
Yeah. That's the good news and the bad news.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm not convinced that the city gets it.
No, it's there. The money is coming.
I have no idea if the money's there, but if the money were there, why wouldn't it flow already?
Now that the city has the money, the question becomes, are they going to spend it? And are they going to spend it on those that are most socially isolated?
Voices like mine have been effectively silenced at City Hall. They don't want to hear from me.
The challenge is that middle-class neighborhoods vote and low-income communities don't.
Right.
So let me show you the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go.
Adam wants to show Maria that creative solutions can be found for disadvantaged neighborhoods, and that hope is not lost.
There used to be a rule that you couldn't make public housing pretty. Seriously. That's why all the hallways are cinder block, just painted, and tile floors, is because if they made it too pretty back in the 40s and 50s, it was going to compete with the private rental. They deliberately made it ugly and then wondered why it created ugly situations. All right, so you're now entering the neighborhood. When I first started to run for office, it was one of the communities I had to go knock on doors in. If you want to feel like an outsider someplace in this city very quickly, go knock on a public housing community's doors as an outsider who's never been there saying, "Hi, I'm Adam, I'd like your vote." They look at you like you're mad, and they should. And so I won the election and immediately came back to the community and made a commitment that we would fix the community center, we'd find a new funding model, we'd build a better future in Alex Park. So we brought in the private sector, we brought in the government, TCHC, we brought in the political leadership, and we brought in the surrounding communities as well. And we facilitated a process that allowed the residents to dream a future for the community.
Adam introduces Maria to the private developer who is working with the community.
We had critics at the start who said, "Don't do this, it's gentrification." And he said, "Don't put private housing next to public housing." But what we have to do is between social housing and affordable rental housing and affordable rental home ownership and market housing is we have to make that continuum present. And if you do that, you get a neighborhood that has the mix that the downtown has always been famous for.
People should be able to have and be able to look around and go and not know where the affordable housing unit type is.
You're building condos here?
Yes.
What's the price per square foot?
We're probably about $10 a square foot more than the other developers that are in the surrounding area.
You charge more?
Yes.
And you don't think you'll have trouble selling?
No. We've already got one building that's occupied. We're going to have a construction start on the second building in about a month.
Part of this project is knitting Alexander Park into the rest of the city.
Mm-hmm.
The other part of the project is knitting the rest of the city into Alexander Park. So there's
people
there's
from
a
the
blurring of
community
distinctions.
wouldn't be able to afford to live here
Yes, they
in
can.
an ownership.
No, we have, there is an ability to have affordable home ownership programs that we're tapped in with the City of Toronto to allow for people, if they qualify for it, to purchase a unit.
The advantage that Alex Park has that other neighborhoods don't is the land value. And
Right.
the second part is
And that's why it's easier to
the
build
amount of
here.
surface. It's so underzoned for
I understand.
comparing neighborhoods. So the land value is such that it's not really a unit
So
per
that's
unit
why a
replacement.
downtown project would get a partner like you, whereas a suburban project wouldn't.
Sure. Yeah.
With real estate values the way they are, it would be almost impossible to do at Jane Finch what they did at Alex Park.
Revitalization in the city, we need to do something. It's a matter of this type of model getting out there.
But you think
But
you're
that's
coming here
true.
to change the neighborhood? And this is what I say time and time again, this neighborhood changes you.
Oh,
And
yeah.
every time you lost a fight of some stupid thing at City Hall or election campaigns that weren't working, I would come back here to recharge my batteries because this place has faith in itself. And if they have faith in themselves, why don't you have faith in yourself?
Well, I felt it walking through. It's a lovely neighborhood. It really is. It really is. And it just exudes hope.
When you see the low-income families binding together to take care of each other and those without delivering to each other so much, it fuels your optimism, and that optimism fuels the work you do up in Ottawa. It's an awfully inspiring group of families doing good work for themselves, and I'm just happy to help them.
Have you ever been to the community center before?
Never.
Never, okay.
But I've always wanted to. Adam's talked about Alex Park so often. So often. Every other speech I told him at council was about Alex Park. You'd throw it in there, even if we're talking about something totally different.
Community center was added after the neighborhood was built. It was one of the demands of the residents. They had no place to gather. So the community kitchen's a big part of this place.
We have 3 programs running in here right now. So we have our lunch program, the seniors lunch program, and Joey will be doing some baking with the kids this afternoon.
Tell me about the seniors program.
A fresh meal is prepared daily and packaged and delivered to their door. I always say that it's not just about the food. It's
No,
about
I
it's
know.
about the knock on the door, so that they have that friendly face
I
every
agree.
morning, and then you see the young men that deliver the food to the seniors out in the community, helping them carry home groceries, and they
No,
forge
I
a
understand.
relationship. It's about creating programs where we can keep our youth engaged so they're not out in the community potentially involved in really risky situations. So it's about, you know, we give our kids, I always say we give them hugs and love, you know, and it's really about that.
You've rendered the community safer by the programs that you offer.
Yeah. Did you show them the community garden?
Not yet.
Not yet. So we utilize that community garden in our cooking as well.
All the 60s public housing projects have this kind of orphan public space.
Yes.
And if you do this with it, it becomes program space that delivers two things. One is food. The second is a local economy as people start to buy and trade. It's like the jarring program. They'll take pickles and tomato sauce and what have you, and they'll sell it on the street for the income to buy the seeds to do it the next year. So it's
Very nice.
You're teaching the cycle of business as well.
These are new?
This is the new home. This
This
is the new
is the
neighborhood.
old? And this is
the new. This is it.
And these are TCH?
These
They're
are-
lovely.
So the condo pays for these. You've got front stoops, which the families can sit out on and have their fun. One of the things about revitalization is that when the police roll through, they won't know whether they're dealing with a kid from one of the private homes or one of the public homes. And when you're dealing with a kid whose parents might be a lawyer or a judge, you kind of deal with them differently. And so hopefully what happens as we reintegrate the neighborhood with the rest of the city, the cops deal with it like the rest of the city instead of like Alex Park. And Alex Park has really had some tough times with the police. The first time I did a tour, one of the community officers referred to the kids in Alex Park as the cockroaches in the community. I was like, I beg your pardon. Like I stopped the entire time. I beg your pardon. And he says, well, you know, they're the troublemaker. I said, you don't talk about any of the neighborhood kids that way. You don't talk about Alex Park that way. And there were people from Alex Park who were on the tour. It was like, you apologize to the communities that are here.
Did they?
Yeah, they did, but
I know.
it's been a tough relationship.
What I've seen is the plan for a true renaissance here. More than revitalization. It's the rebirth of a community. But I'm under no illusions that you can refabricate this in the suburbs. We have our own set of challenges that wouldn't be able to stand up to this kind of a model. The financing just isn't there.
We need to understand what different communities look like, how they function, what the challenges are, where the investments need to be different, and that's why I'm looking forward to seeing your neighborhoods.
Okay, great.
Maria wants to show Adam the challenges faced in the suburbs of Toronto.
You've got all this orphan green space. It looks pretty, but it doesn't get used for anything.
I wanted him to see how people can live in such squalor that is caused by government.
Here we are.
People aren't living there now, no.
Yeah.
They're living in there?
Yeah. Unless you see it, you don't believe it. And I think it was an eye-opener for him.
And I think late 2015, they announced the Reset Project for communities that there was no development opportunities. They were promised $27 million. Up until this day, up until last week, we're trying to figure out as a community what happened to the money that was supposed to come here.
And who promised it?
Toronto Community Housing was supposed to put up a portion. The City of Toronto, because Mayor Tory, he announced the project. I'm not sure. You would have to really do some digging because we've been trying to ask all these questions as a community. We haven't gotten any response. So
We're the largest landlord in Canada, and we're causing despair amongst our tenants. What does that say about us?
Households are being evicted, and they're being displaced all across the city. You know, it's really a sad day.
But you got families with doctors, you got kids with schools, you got there's daycare arrangements, there's family connections. So it's just going to disperse right across the city.
Residents were made to participate in a lottery.
The whole situation of, people's names and fate being thrown into a bingo drum and their names, pulled out, from that, and not really looking at the particular needs of people, I think was deplorable.
Maria wants to make sure that Adam meets as many people as possible.
I understand there was a lottery.
Yeah.
And you drew number?
51.
51, and
I
you drew
found
number
lucky
49.
everybody must move by September.
To where?
If you don't, I don't know. If you don't move, they will shut out the light. They will shut out everything. So, and then when you go out, you lose your subsidy. You lose everything. You have to be on your own. That's what they put in the letter they sent to us.
How long you lived here?
I live 11 years.
A system has been visited upon that neighborhood, and they're being, systematically chucked out the front door and told to leave. They have a right to be there. They have a right to be heard about what's happening to them.
Last year, April, when they started fencing us in and saying that they're going to repair the old place, and then I started to rebel. They said I'm the troublemaker around here. But you know what? I'm glad to be a troublemaker because I'm fighting for my rights.
Edna Rose, by her own standards, is a troublemaker.
And now you're telling me that I have to get out? I have to get away from my doctor? I have to get away from my church? I have to get away from the school? Those children I work with, the little babies, the toddlers. And you're going to tell me that I can't work up there with them? I have to go? That's a shame on housing.
And we witnessed a woman in severe dread of what was to become of her and her family.
Yesterday I was upset and crying.
Why so?
Because I went over to relocation and they're giving me a hard time over there. The grandkids, they stay here. The great-grands, they stay here.
Yeah.
All these years they're on my lease. And then housing, no. And all of a sudden now they're telling me that I can't get a 2 or a 3 bedroom in order to raise.
And you provide care for them.
Yes, and they want to put me in a 1 bedroom. First thing first, I may look strong, but I'm claustrophobic. I cannot go into an apartment building. And these people coming up with an 8th floor and a 7th floor apartment, even though my doctor said no, they're coming up with it. So I'm fighting them.
So how do you have a family with 5, 6 people coming over for dinner on Easter Sunday if you don't have the space? And as the grandmother and as the matriarch, you provide a lot of babysitting and daycare.
They don't care about that. They don't care about that. They just want to get us out or get me out and put me into a little space. I don't know what my fate is right now, and it's killing me. At 76 years old, and I feel like I can go it.
When Edna Rose was talking today about her situation, I at one point walked away because I want to suppress some memories. Talking with her brought them out to the surface. When you do someone a wrong, and poverty is a wrong that we do to other people, that type of poverty and what's done to you under those circumstances stays with you and lives within you forever.
They're only open Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So they might be in the office working, but they don't open it for the community on these days.
Let's see if they'll open it for us. Maybe there is no one there.
You got special constables showing up.
So because I knocked, they called the officers. Do you believe this? We're filming.
What are we filming?
What's happening in the neighborhood. I'm a counselor. Oh. We knocked on the door, but there's nobody there.
You set up a transformation office that you open for a few hours a day and put it behind iron bars, and in the middle of the whole thing, security shows up. Like, really? That's the way you respond to community impulse? No wonder you're in trouble. So when TCAC behaves that way, you just want to go, oh my God, it's like that's going to take 20 years to undo the damage you just did.
Are you?
Engage. Let your imagination run free. And when you do, you start seeing the possibilities of transformation. You start seeing the possibilities of a better neighborhood there.
You got so much land.
But Adam, it's not like downtown. There's no social safety net here.
Yeah.
You don't have the services here that you have downtown.
And that's the thing.
City of Toronto,
that's the thing,
is different.
This is a lot of land to be worth nothing.
Adam, stop thinking that way.
No.
That's downtown thinking.
What do those houses go for?
$850,000 because they're semi-detached.
So that's the value of the plot of each one of them.
Yes, but you have a social safety net. We don't.
Nice.
And that's the difference between communities that can make it and communities that are destined to be what they are up here.
You're doing the math in my head. So how many units of housing in total, public housing?
300.
He said 362?
Yeah, there'd be 300 in those 2 buildings alone.
Yeah.
That's a single condominium.
Yeah, I know.
The value is in the soil.
It's just the thing is you got to get the school board on site, you got to get the parks department on
That's
site.
downtown
NTCH.
thinking.
No,
That's
it's
downtown
not.
thinking.
It's good urban planning is what it is. It's
And
not
there is
downtown.
no good urban planning up here.
This
Where do
all-
you see good urban planning?
None. Well, I was going to say they'd take all
Exactly.
but there's enough land up here to solve the problem. It wasn't a downtown thing I was enunciating. It was an aspirational thing. And the downtown isn't more aspirational or less aspirational in the suburbs. The difference is in the downtown, when you make something happen, everyone notices and everyone gets confident about the process. In the suburbs, when you make something happen, people don't notice it as much. There's enough land here, Maria.
No one's saying there isn't.
It's not downtown
I'm telling you that the old city of Toronto was an expert in bringing safe communities together and in setting up the social safety net that you need. North York was not. North York was a failure in this. Look what North York built.
She's been up in that neck of the woods now as a politician for, I guess, a quarter century plus. And it's the same things that are beating down those neighborhoods are beating her down a bit. She looks at all that green field and just sees jurisdictional squabbles, and she sees the fences as insurmountable. She's a bit more fatalistic. I'm a bit more sort of completely contemptuous of any authority figures. If you tell me it can't be done, I try twice as hard. You should take this neighborhood to your professor and say, let's turn this into a classroom. Let's set the planning students on it. Get the land valuations done, get the mapping done, and take a look at all the public land that's joined and touching, and say, here's the public footprint, and now we're going to reimagine how the schools work, how the parks work, how the open space works, and then you add a bit of private development to it to help leverage and pay for the costs. And you've got new housing money on the way. This is fixable.
It's a very good idea. It's a novel idea. I have no doubt that Adam Vaughan is pure in his intent and his intention. I do have great misgivings about politics in general. Politics is about getting elected. So why would a leader of a council or a political party, a province or a country, dole out money to a sector that will not reap substantial benefits for him or her?
Look how much green space that is.
I keep saying it's beautiful here. There's a huge field. People come and play cricket every weekend.
Now you're talking my
Now you're talking his
It's
language.
good, I like
Yeah,
that.
barbecues, things like that.
Adam, I found when he was on council, was a very passionate and, above all, brave individual. But I think that anyone who's used to a municipal lifestyle will feel ultimately straitjacketed in a provincial or federal role, because it is a central party that tells you what to do, what to think, how to act. I don't know if Adam is the right temperament for that kind of a job.
She's done a lot of great work up in her neck of the woods, but there's more work to be done. But I'm glad she's up there doing it, because there aren't many people on city council who can talk about growing up in public housing. And there aren't many who grew up in suburban public housing who go on to become the voice of their communities. And she's uniquely positioned as a result.
In Italian, it's portavoce. You are the bringer of the voice. I bring the community's voice to the table, and that's all really I do. I bring their concerns, their voice to the table, and I think they appreciate that.
At the end of the day, it's about making people's lives better and making them happier. That's your job. As a politician, my job is to make you happy, right? And while that's a sort of a simplistic and perhaps even impossible goal, it's really where we should be.
There is irrefutable scientific evidence that climate change is real. Its effects are felt everywhere, and Canada is no exception. One of the key contributors to the rise in global temperatures is carbon dioxide, or CO2, greenhouse gas emissions that come from the burning of fossil fuels. How can damage to the environment be managed, and what role do governments play in the fight against global climate change? Should private citizens and corporations be trusted to clean up their ways? Or should they be taxed for their CO2 emissions? Our experiment plays political Cupid by taking two opposing politicians out of their comfort zone.
Ah, the good stuff.
But I'm not arguing against the concept of electric vehicles.
And forces them to listen to one another.
think we'd all agree it would be a better world with less carbon in the air.
We're sending them on a series of platonic dates to solve the thorniest issues facing Canadians.
Well, this is a crucial question for Canada.
Who will seduce the other with logic or passion? And what surprises are in store? This is Political Blind Date.
I am the Member of Parliament for Lakeland, and I'm the Shadow Minister for Natural Resources for the official opposition. And I represent a big rural riding in northeast Alberta, where I grew up and where I continue to live with my husband on our farm just east of the town of Two Hills. Well, I guess I was always interested in politics and enjoyed social studies. At school, we always talked about current events and politics around the dinner table at home. My grandmother had been the first female mayor of Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. My mom was a public school trustee. My dad was involved with volunteering with a local member of parliament. So it was easy for me to see how a person could get involved in politics and make an impact. And I think sometimes people don't get involved because they just aren't asked or they don't know how.
The Liberals' anti-energy agenda is obvious. Their carbon tax undermines Canada's competitiveness and makes everything more expensive for everyone. When will the Liberals finally champion Canadian energy, Canadian innovation, and Canadian jobs?
I'm Arthur Potts, and I'm the Member of Provincial Parliament for Beaches East York. Quite an accidental thing. The election was called 3 years ago. They didn't have a candidate. They asked me to run, and my first reaction was, I don't want to be an MPP. And I was told categorically, don't worry, you will not win, but we want you to wave the flag for the party. It's only 6 weeks. I said, you know what, I could do that. Let's do it, it'd be good for my business. And we worked hard, knocked on a lot of doors, and at the end of the day, I ended up winning by 481 votes, the smallest margin of victory of any Liberal in the House. And so that was a great thrill, and I woke up the next day and I said, man, am I ready for this. This new economy that we call the low-carbon economy is going to be 6-7 times bigger than the economy that brought smartphones into the world. It's huge, and we're going to need thousands and thousands of qualified people, great jobs, high-paying jobs in this new economy.
Experts indicate that worsening air pollution is causing more and more catastrophic climate change. But how can we reduce greenhouse gases? Many agree that fossil fuel users should be accountable for the damage, and it's time to put a price on pollution. The federal government in Ottawa is implementing a carbon tax that will set a price on carbon in provinces that do not implement their own system for reduction. The tax gives businesses and households an incentive to reduce pollution when doing so would cost less than paying the tax. But it's tricky. If the tax is too low, then polluters are likely to pay the tax and keep polluting. Too high, and you cripple businesses and families. That's why Ontario is implementing a system called cap and trade. The cap sets a maximum limit on provincial emissions and issues carbon permits to certain companies. The trade element allows companies that pollute more than their quota to purchase carbon permits from companies that produce less. Shannon and Arthur are spending the day together. Rare for rival politicians. Will they butt heads? Or might they find common ground?
I've heard of Shannon Stubbs. I haven't met her. I don't really know what she's done in the House and such. I'm looking forward to meeting for the first time.
Well, I've never met Arthur before, so I'm looking forward to it and hopefully have a friendly debate about some of the issues facing my constituents.
The time has come, I think, where Albertans will have no choice. The economics of oil is disappearing, and I'm hoping those people get jobs in the clean economy as opposed to a dirty economy.
The carbon tax debate can become polarized, and I hope right off the bat that we have a mutual understanding that both of our priorities are environmental stewardship and economic growth.
I don't know what her mindset really is. I'm looking forward to hearing it. I think all thoughtful Canadians, when they look at the evidence of what the price of energy is on renewables, will realize that you don't want to be putting poison in the air.
I just have to watch out that I don't get too aggressive or hostile and focus on being a good date, too. Here goes. Hopefully we'll get along.
I do have a little sense of apprehension or just excitement. I can just feel it. I'm excited, I guess. What a great spot. You must be Shannon. What a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for inviting me to Athabasca.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming.
Delighted to be here.
You know, I didn't have too many preconceived notions. I knew a little bit about his work.
Quite frankly, she wasn't anything like I thought she was going to be. Her pictures don't do her justice on their website. Young, pretty, dynamic woman and full of energy. I don't think I've ever been to Athabasca before, so this is really exciting. Now, my
Have you
riding,
been to Alberta before?
Actually, I worked out here on the oil rigs for a better part of 6 months.
Oh, you did?
I was only 18 at the time, but very grateful to the industry because it put me through
Yeah.
a trip to Europe and my first year at university. So
Wow, good for you.
And are you married?
We got married when I was in the nomination campaign.
Nice.
And so my terrible last name, Stubbs, is actually my maiden name. And as you can imagine, as a short girl with that last name, I looked forward my whole life to taking on the name of like Smith or Jones. But meeting with the Reverend the week before the wedding, he said, how do you want me to introduce you guys? And I said, oh, Shannon Saskew. And then Shane looked at me and said, we have 4,500 lip pieces with the last name Stubbs on it. We could discuss this later.
She was very warm, very receiving, and sat down, and we immediately started to engage in a conversation. I could see she was well prepared for it.
I hope that my constituents will be able to express their views today about their worries of the economic consequences of the carbon tax.
We all have to agree that putting poison in the air is a bad thing. You know, whether that poison's coal, fumes.
I think it doesn't make moral or economic or environmental sense to make oil and gas development in Canada even more difficult when those are the very investors that are leading the way in developing renewable and alternative technologies. Unless you think it's only governments that should just take hundreds of millions of dollars, make everything more expensive for citizens, and pick winners and losers for
When we
everyday
brought the
Canadians.
carbon tax in at 4.3 cents, gasoline in Ontario was about 98 cents. So that took it to $1.02. Right now, after the hurricanes and such, where it spiked to 125, it's down in the $4, $3 level. It hasn't really been noticed.
Right, which means people aren't going to reduce their gasoline purchases, which means it's not going to do what you say it's supposed to do.
They're not reducing their gasoline purchases, but we're taking that money, we're investing it in social housing, energy retrofits. We're investing in First Nations, energy retrofits, new ways of producing, getting them off diesel, putting them into solar and batteries. We're using that money to help the cement industry and other major emitters reduce their carbon impact. So we're having very direct
There's
impact.
probably expertise in Alberta that could assist
I'm sure there is.
Ontario
I have a lot of
development.
respect for the great work that's been done in Alberta with oil. My issue is it's becoming redundant because sustainable technologies are going to take over the needs.
It's not becoming redundant when the entire world is going to continue to demand oil and gas for the next half century.
Price of gas fluctuates far more than our carbon price will ever have an impact, and it's resulting in really meaningful reductions in CO2 in Ontario.
So what my constituents would say to that is you've proven their point that the carbon tax is a cash grab for government revenue generation to fund their pet projects.
That's been fun. I hear you've got some people that you want me to meet.
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
He's very likable, and with his nice blue eyes and his big smile, but his policy positions are a threat to, you know, the livelihoods of the people that I represent.
So, okay if I drive?
Yeah, you should drive.
I'll let you go over the car. Oh, this is great. I'm looking forward to the trip, and
My constituents elected me to fight for them, so I allow the feisty part of myself to show.
it's funny, I don't use the word fight, ever. Like, I think it's too aggressive. I always talk about I'm a strong advocate.
Yeah.
I advocate for this, that, because fighting, for me, it intones this violence, which I think we need to move away from, particularly in politics, as people get so cynical about politics and politicians. It's a very left-wing thing, I find, to do. They always talk about, we're fighting for justice, we're fighting for this.
Oh, we had a conversation at one part where I used the words fighting for my constituents, and that's what I think I was elected to do. And he said he thought that was a word that sort of had violent or aggressive connotations, and he didn't prefer to use that. And I thought maybe that's one of those instances in which there might be a difference between rural Alberta and downtown Toronto, because for sure my rural Alberta constituents want me to fight on their behalf.
Shannon's constituency is one of the largest in Canada. It takes more than 4.5 hours just to drive across it.
I don't think I've ever driven over a complete field like this. Well, maybe as a kid. I was in my souped-up Fairlane with speakers in the back and heading off on a different kind of blind date.
Yeah.
Wasn't a
Like
political
an
blind
actual
date. An actual date, yeah.
Happy day!
Wow, look at this country.
Yes!
This is incredible.
I'd just like you to meet my friends, the Olsen family.
Hi there.
Go on,
Arthur
Travis
Potts.
Olsen.
Hi, Travis.
Nice to meet you. This is Claire.
Hi, Claire.
Travis, his wife and twin daughters live near Athabasca, Alberta, on a farm with more than 1,200 Black Angus cattle.
Travis was an excellent choice from his perspective of what she was trying to put down. He had his wife there and his 2 lovely children. He put a family face to it. So, your heart bleeds for that. No, I bet your kids have named every one of these cows.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
But it was important for me to ensure the Olsens could talk to Arthur about the very real impacts on their family and on their business because of the carbon tax.
One of the big keys of our operation has been to extend the grazing season. So not only is it good for us economically, it's really good for the environment. The typical traditional part of agriculture was you would go into a crop like this, you'd bale it, and that involves a ton of tractors and fossil fuel and everything that we want to avoid doing. Right. I want to avoid doing it as a producer because it costs me money.
Here's a guy who's already done everything he can to reduce his use on fossil fuels. He free-range grazes his cattle, and they're there all winter long. So he's already reduced his carbon footprint dramatically.
The carbon tax at $50 a ton, it's going to cost our family over $100,000 a year.
Yeah, at $50 a ton. Probably surprised you don't know that in Ontario, we're premising our plan on $17 and not $50. And that's because cap and trade allows you to get more efficient carbon reductions with less money.
So, and I guess my biggest worry that I've got with it is...
But the reason you're doing the calculation at the $50 is because the federal Liberals are forcing a $50 a ton carbon tax.
And that's what they also said to Ontario, because you have a cap and trade, you're doing it differently, you're going to meet your objectives without having to go to $50. You're free to do so. So every other province outside of Quebec and Ontario, if they go that route, will be paying it at $50, but we're doing it at $17.
Right. But whether you're at $50 a ton or $17 a ton, my big concern is I'm not competing just within Alberta or just within Western Canada or just within Canada. We're competing on a North American marketplace. And when you tax me at a much higher rate for something like carbon, and my competitors across the US border that are producing the exact same product that we are, that don't pay a carbon tax.
Yet.
You're right, yeah, exactly. So if everybody paid a carbon tax, everybody in the world, then I would be game. And we have to be able to solve the world's problems, whether it's carbon or methane or non-renewable fossil fuel use. We have to do it together. But the problem is the losers are us. If I have a cement business or an oil business, I can pick up and move from Alberta to Texas if the taxes get too high. I can't move my ranch.
No, I appreciate that. Nor do we want you to.
Yeah,
right.
good point.
But so the point is, and I love the fact that you come to that, you're a businessman. If I could show you how to get all the energy you needed here at half the price you're paying for a liter of oil, wouldn't that be a good thing? Particularly that wasn't polluting the environment. So if you could get wind and solar with battery storage power here to run all your electrical stuff, and if you could take your surplus electricity and make hydrogen that you could fuel your tractor with,
cheaper than buying fossil fuel, would you do it?
If there's an economic argument, I'll look at any of those options. You have to forgive me if I'm a little
But see, that technology is coming, and that's one of the roles I think government plays, is bringing that new technology and showing you how you can do better using less fossil fuel and using sustainable energies.
So there's these claims that the technology is coming, but in the meanwhile, you're going to cost the Olson family $150,000 a year.
No, I appreciate that. There'll be disruption.
One thing you said,
you said talking about governments picking it winners and losers, they're making losers of families like this.
We employ 9 people full-time. This is our livelihoods. This is what we do. This is what we love to do. We've been here 106 years on this ranch, and we just want to make a living.
Either they give up a whole bunch of things in their lives to be able to make those costs, or having to consider shutting down their generational, family farm operation.
I've heard the message very, very clearly that we need to transition in a way that gets the best results from a carbon perspective while protecting people's lives and not making the transition too difficult.
So it was great meeting Travis, and at the end, he also said, listen, I appreciate you explaining it to me that way. I hadn't thought of it quite like that.
Because we love what you do.
That's good.
Nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you. Thanks. Okay, we have a surprise for you, though.
Uh-oh. I love surprises.
We have a surprise for you. Okay, you all right?
Am I going to ride one of these things? Because I might be able to.
And I thought we were on our way, but that's when he said, no, I've got another job for you.
So we got some calves back here, and they just need a vaccination, so we're going to vaccinate them.
Well, Trav is going to involve Arthur in vaccinating a calf, I think. And just to be fair to Arthur, I have not ever done that either myself.
This is fantastic. The good stuff.
So what you're going to do, this is a subcutaneous injection, so you're going to grab the skin, you're going to pull it back, you're going to go in the base, and then you just give a little pull. Want to try it?
Sure.
It looked easy enough, so I grabbed the cow's hide, pulled it away, stuck in the needle, and just as I was about to stick the needle, the cow bucked a little bit. My hand slipped off, and I ended up pushing the needle right through my index finger on the left-hand side. And I got, 2 pricks to show it.
Perfect.
Well, one thing, I'm not going to get typhoid or whatever the cows get. Mad cow disease.
Yeah, we'll get that.
Although I know they would be reluctant to ever vote Liberal, I think at least I got some begrudgingly respect from both of them while I was out there.
When's the next election?
June.
If it doesn't work out, you come get a job here.
I'd be happy to.
That's good. Good for you.
Thank goodness it wasn't a worse outcome, so I thought he handled that like a champion, really.
Well, this has been a ton of fun. Yeah. I've really enjoyed meeting you and coming out to Alberta. So I hope when we get back to Toronto, we'll be there next week. We'll see you next week, and I'll introduce you to some people doing some interesting work, and look forward to having those conversations.
Yeah, well, that sounds good. I look forward to seeing you in Toronto.
Give us a hug, warm up. You look freezing. Yeah. It is cold out here, but there's no snow. So this is great. So let's head back and do it.
Now it's Arthur's turn back in Toronto, the home to all kinds of green economy initiatives supported by Ontario's cap-and-trade regime.
This is where you'll see the future of transportation.
And then, of course, we have the vehicles outside available for test drive. And so people can come to one place, test drive all the different makes and models of cars, sort of figure out which one might be for them, and then we refer them to a dealer that carries the car. The cap-and-trade money is paying for the rebates. The rebate has been extremely effective. This quarter, Ontario sold more EVs than Quebec, which is a first. In Ontario, there's about 15,000 EVs on the road. That counts 100% electric and plug-in hybrid, but out of the population, it's about 1%. It's a small percentage right now. It's really growing, though. It's doubling annually.
She said 1% of Ontario drivers have electric cars and hybrid vehicles. What will be the scale up required in the provision of electricity to, say, transition like all Ontario drivers?
Right now in Ontario, we're in a bit of a unique situation. Though some other provinces have this, we have a big surplus of electricity at night. EV drivers, mostly it's convenient to plug in at night. So there's a really good match between our grid and the cars. Based on the analysis that we've seen, we could accommodate about half of Ontarians driving EV before we have any real big need for new supply.
When the price is affordable, people will take it up. And so this will help make sure people know that, for instance, driving an electric car is affordable today.
Although she hates driving in the city, Shannon agrees to take an electric car for a spin.
Yeah, it's super quiet.
Speed bump. But you weren't speeding.
I wasn't speeding.
And it's zero emissions driving.
Yeah.
This is fantastic.
I like it. It would just be a matter of, being in a form of a vehicle that would be, usable and efficient for where I'm from, which is a very rural area.
The market will ultimately determine the adaptability of that technology and about whether or not people will purchase those vehicles.
What was it Clara was saying, that she saves $4,000 a year? And these cars will go at least 500,000 kilometers. So you could keep this car for 10 years, you're saving $4,000 a year, that's $40,000. It completely pays for itself in gas savings. Pull into the right.
Turning right, that's natural for me, Arthur.
I had you believing in the car every time you went left. You went left, you went left.
Maybe that would...
But now you're going right again. I've lost
And
her.
I'm signaling because I get him.
That is a smooth, quiet ride. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for visiting.
All right, pleasure.
Okay, you take care.
Take care. You want to drive? You did so well.
Go ahead, Arthur, you drive.
I think it's just great and energizing and interesting to see all those advancements in technology and in innovation.
But I'm not
So
arguing
that
against the
technology's all
concept of electric vehicles. I think the possibility is exciting and fascinating.
But
And
you're
I-
arguing
I
against putting
believe the
a
private
little tax
sector
on the...
will do that.
You're arguing against putting a little tax on top of the cost of fossil fuels, which will spur all the investments in new technologies that will make the transformation happen faster. That's all I'm talking about. It's strictly transitional catalyst approach.
Except that we know
The carbon
from the
tax
timeline,
isn't shutting down people's businesses.
But we know from the timeline of the place that you just took me to that they existed before the introduction of the carbon tax and before the introduction of the cap and trade system.
The same thing as hydrogen
So
cars.
so my point is they were already moving forward on that innovation, on that technology.
Not as fast as they are
So
now.
what if we took, right, because they're getting money, right.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Because we're incenting people using a
Right,
small
which
tax on
they're-
carbon to do the right thing and get out of carbon.
Sometimes there were a couple of heated exchanges, I guess, because for me, the policy positions that he's advancing, the end result is a risk to the livelihoods of the people that I represent.
Arthur introduces Shannon to a company that is developing a new kind of fuel that might be a clean replacement for fossil fuels.
This is our production plant here in Canada. Battery and fuel cell technology work together to deliver electrical energy for electric mobility.
Right.
Lots of people talk about batteries and battery electric vehicles, but there is another way to electrify transport which we think is better, and that's to use fuel cells. So batteries and fuel cell technology work together to deliver electrified transport. And the car can go just as far, or the bus or the truck can go just as far on hydrogen as it can on gasoline or diesel. So we're delivering the same user experience, but we're doing it in a clean way with hydrogen gas. And zero emissions. So the only emission from a hydrogen fuel cell is pure water vapor.
If you were to do this in Alberta, where energy is generated 85% carbon sources, does it have the same benefit?
Very unique situation in Alberta where you have a true energy market where the price is the price. And that actually also creates an opportunity for us to do energy storage and power to gas and deliver value, because when something's in surplus in Alberta, the price goes very low. When it's in high demand, the price goes very high. And in that real
'Cause the market works.
situation, we can still deliver value.
Right.
So again, hydrogen is not a science project, and it's not new. We've been doing this for almost 25 years now.
Yes.
And as a mature technology, we're ready to deliver value.
All these forms of energy generation and production are important, and the
That's right.
government shouldn't be trying to stop one or end one. It should be providing incentives so innovators and researchers and technology developers can do their work.
I'm not saying wholesale change. I'm not saying, we turn off the tap on oil. What I'm saying is we need signals to say this is part of our future, and we need to shift the policy in that direction so that these new innovations get adopted and we learn how to use them, service them, build them, deploy them. There's lots of learning in these transitions and changes, and government is an important part of signaling that change. That only comes about from, days like today when we have discussions with each other.
Well, this is a beautiful piece of technology, and appreciate you showing it to us.
You can't stick your proverbial head in the oil sands. You got to lift it up, see the changes that are coming, and embrace them. That's what we've done in Ontario. I don't mean disrespect to the hard men and working men and women in the oil industry, but times are really changing, and we need to transition from an oil-based economy to a sustainable energy economy, a low fossil fuel economy.
And so what I hope to at least have compelled Arthur on is that it's the diversity of energy production in Canada which is our strength, and that as politicians we should be championing all of the different economic opportunities and futures that are diverse across Canada in our different provinces and our different communities. Canada's greatest strength is our diversity across the country, and that goes for our diverse energy generation in every community and every province too.
Exactly. So listen, this has been fun. I hope we'll get to see each other again when I get up to Ottawa, or if I get to Northern Alberta. Anytime you're in Toronto, do come see me.
That sounds good.
It was so much fun. Cheers, see you. Cheers. All right.
Okay, take care. Wait, which way are we going? I'm
I've
going
gotta
to
go
go
this
right,
way.
and you're going to go left.
You can go left.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not going left. I've had a lot of fun with Arthur, and he's very likable and very engaging, and I think that we got along for the most part.
People have a very, very bad view of most politicians. So if this helps people see that politicians are real people and have a sense of humor and are honestly trying to do the best they can, not just for their constituents, but for the country and the province as a whole, I think that's a positive thing.